Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you pay attention for a few minutes to watch the following security video. The object of this video is to organize a possible evacuation in case of an emergency. The evacuation teams of the Palacio Municipal will act accordingly to control any type of emergency that could occur. The evacuation order will be received through the loudspeakers. The access to the auditorium is done through the main hall of the building. The front doors will be open for the access and exit of all guests at the event. In case of an emergency, all the glass doors in the main hall will be opened. Likewise, all the front doors of the auditorium, on the sides of the building marked as emergency exits, the doors on the sides of the first row of seats, the marble staircase exit, the complementary areas, and the emergency exit stairs that end at the platform will also be opened. Security staff will be in the center of the auditorium and at the front of the stage guiding guests in order to organize the exit. Once the order has been given, stay calm. Follow at all times the instructions given by the emergency team staff. They will be identified by wearing a reflective vest. Do not return to gather personal objects. Walk at a fast pace without running. Do not use the elevators. After exiting the building, if you notice the absence of a companion, inform the building personnel and follow their instructions. We inform you of the existence of medical assistance at your disposal in case of it being required. Don't hesitate to contact the security staff. In case of an evacuation, go to one of the following 3 meeting points. 1. Avenida Capital de España and Via de Dublin. 2. Calle Ribera del Sena and Glorieta de Su Alteza Real Don Juan de Borbón. 3. Calle Ribera del Sena and Calle Strasburgo. Thank you very much for your attention. We kindly request that you keep your mobile phones off or muted.
Welcome to our greenhouse, where the future of connectivity comes to take root, grow, and flourish. Welcome to Fyuz. Communication, innovation, networking, connectivity. Are you ready to harvest some new ideas with us? We start to grow in 3, 2, 1. Make it bloom. Welcome to Fyuz.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yago Tenorio, the chairman of Telecom Infra Project.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Madrid again. Welcome to Fyuz. I hope you're looking forward for 3 days of content, networking, and fun, and food. Yeah, don't forget that. So, yeah, what is this? This is an award that I actually picked up a few weeks ago. But to tell the story, let me welcome to stage to Kristian Toivo, our executive director.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So we actually got awarded Best Congress of the Year for last year Fyuz. And I thought I'm going to give this to you because it's where it belongs. And I'm going to congratulate you and the whole TIP crew, also our agency, Somos Experiences, and actually you as the audience because you made this possible. So well done. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. So it is a great honor to have this award. It's a team effort by everybody participating last year and everybody arranging it. And I think we will make even a better Fyuz 2023. So let's see if we have another award.
Exactly, that's the challenge. The challenge is we will win it again next year.
Perfect.
So,
yes. Now I will obviously rely on my team because I didn't take the clicker with me. So the first slide is the most important one. Thank you to all our sponsors. Without you, we would not have been able to make Fyuz happen. So all of the audience, give them applause. Thank you.
Now we have a clicker instead of an award. So, Kristian, I introduced you as the executive director of TIP exactly 1 year ago on this stage. So
yes.
Tell us, what's been going on in this year? What's your take on year one?
Well, it's been a super exciting year. Before I tell you a bit more about it, nevertheless, those of you who haven't connected to Wi-Fi, here's the network, the password, and please keep on posting, take pictures, put out the message to the audience. Also, just important information, every day have this flow. We start 9:45 at the main stage, we have a lunch break, and then the afternoon is for breakouts, networking, and continued breakouts, and of course, just everybody being together and having a good time. So, where are we? We have more than 650 members in TIP, some of them mentioned there on the right-hand side. We have a great board sponsoring, driving, keeping me honest and busy, appreciate that. And with this community, we have a number of things we have been achieving until now. On the innovation side, obviously working on roadmaps, releases, on Open RAN, Open Optical Packet Transport, Open Wi-Fi. We are badging products. We have some really exciting new members in the community working with fixed broadband. And very importantly, we are also getting products out to the market. More than 50,000 Open Wi-Fi access points, close to 30,000 DCSGs deployed, 5 Open RAN blueprints in production, testing, deployment. And we've been working this last year very much on increasing our industry engagement. We've developed a new framework for Open RAN system certification, a framework that actually applies for all the products and solutions that we are developing within the community. Also very exciting, we just recently, together with 9 industry partners, we got awarded to be driving a project under DCIT in the UK, Ariane, to industrialize RIC and XAPS RAPs. Super exciting project, and we'll hear about that in the breakout sessions as well. So we've been quite busy.
You've been quite busy indeed.
Yes.
So it feels like we are at the stage on which it's clear that we are the place for aligning specification. And to a point, you could say aligning supply with demand.
Yes.
Which is very important. We've also taken the first steps towards certification of subsystems, so element certification. But is that enough to industrialize disaggregated networks? Or what is coming next?
Well, the way you put the question, Yago, clearly it's not enough, right? And one of the key things we've been working with and will continue to work on going forward is to really enable solutions to be deployed at scale. We talked about the aligning supply and demand, managing requirements, making sure the community and the vendors know what they need to focus on. We continue to develop releases, blueprints, and test plans. And by the way, we need to be better in developing those test plans to really be industry, commercial grade, end-to-end focused. The big thing is we need to move towards an end-to-end system certification framework, basically to be able to demonstrate that the disaggregated solution, when it comes together, performs as well or better as traditional solutions coming from one source of supply. And this is our biggest focus as we go forward. We've taken some good steps, particularly on the open optical side, also moving in that direction in Open Wi-Fi, and working very hard to go to that same place in Open RAN. Basically to achieve test once, deploy many. We are not there yet. Takes everybody in this industry to make it happen. Once we are there, publishing the results, enabling the information to help the community of vendors and solution providers to bring those solutions to the market, drive the business, and very importantly, also link it to lifecycle management so that we can track how those certified systems evolve and always keep up to date the information. To summarize it all, which really is also the summary of Fyuz this year, on the left-hand side, Open RAN, OOPT, OpenWiFi. We will talk a lot about the status of deployment, how we basically bring those solutions to be ready for industrialized scaling in the market. But we should not forget there's a lot of things happening on the technology space. I've listed quite a few of them. They will all be discussed in breakouts, many of them on the main stage panel, whether it's neutral hosts, AI-driven networks, continued hardware disaggregation, lots of interesting stuff that we will continue to work on while we are industrializing those ready to deploy solutions. Super exciting journey. Next year at Fyuz 24, we'll see where we are. With all that said, Yago, I would actually be keen to hear your thoughts. I mean, you've been in the industry for a long time, the champion of these type of open disaggregated solutions. Where do you think we are? What's kind of happening? What's important going forward?
So I think when it comes to disaggregation, and particularly when it comes to Open RAN, which is still the most kind of active and interesting space, because it's bigger, there is a lot going on, and it feels that the industry is picking up the pace and is accelerating. And you may have heard in the last few weeks, actually, after the summer, Ericsson made a move or started to take some steps. And I've heard a lot of questions as to whether that means that Ericsson is now doing Open RAN or not, or when, or to what extent. So I thought maybe before I even give Vodafone perspective on what we are doing, I thought that it would be interesting to have a discussion on that. But better than me saying what I think they're doing, we thought that we would invite Fredrik Jedling, the VP Networks from Ericsson, to actually tell us from his mouth. So, Fredrik, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Yago. Good to see you. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm super good. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I know you couldn't make it physically, but it's a lot to have you on video, so thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So tell us, so we heard about Ericsson taking some steps, and there is a lot of interest and questions. So what does that mean? Are you doing Open RAN?
Yeah, I think, look, we think it's time now to create the next chapter in our industry and defining the future of telecom. And that's not the least important, we think, for the European digitalization. And I think it's time for the industry to come together and shape this future. And our perspective on this is that we want to build a 5G network platform leveraging cloud-native technologies built on Open RAN standardized interfaces with, call it an industry-scale, cost-efficient, high-performing Open RAN. So that enables, of course, a lot of automation. It allows for AI-driven type of networks that Kristian was talking about, but also on a more broader perspective, addressing possibly more of the revenue-generating perspective of the industry and what we can actually achieve with the networks that we build. Building a more horizontal software-defined type of network will also enable developers to access capabilities and activate capabilities in the network and expose them through APIs to introduce and monetize new 5G use cases and other business opportunities. So there is one level, so to speak, in defining and building an open cloud-native type of network based on ORAN. On top of that, there is the ability then us as an industry to expose that and quite frankly come together as an industry and secure that we can capitalize on that together and secure revenue generation in our networks. I think that's the predominant end goal for us, and the enablers for that are then again cloud-native technologies based on ORAN standardized interfaces.
That is super good, and in fact, the theme of this conference is grow together, so it works really, really well. So it definitely sounds as you're fully embracing Open RAN. So what are the next steps, and what can the industry expect from Ericsson in practical terms? Are your radios Open RAN ready?
Yeah, as we said, we have some, and we did an announcement early from a hardware perspective. We have about 1 million Open RAN ready radios deployed in the networks today. I think there's been a lot of progress. By the way, of course, Yago, this is going to be a gradual evolution over time when it comes to software to enable that and starting, let's say, 2024, as we said in a release last week, I believe it was. I would say that we've been very active together with O-RAN Alliance, and I think one of the things enabling us now to take this step is that we see technology matures. And Ericsson is a company that pride ourselves on staying ahead of the game, staying ahead of innovation, being a technology leader. That's important for us. Not because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but by doing that, we think we can build more cost-efficient, high-performing networks. And when we work together in the work group 4 in standardizing, harmonizing interfaces, we now see on the mid-band side, for example, that now we have the opportunity to replicate what we have been able to do on the integrated side, also in a more open interface environment. So you will see a gradual introduction of these specifications over time. Of course, we spend about $3 billion on R&D per year, and it's a big machinery that is now being set up for these type of networks. And of course, our ambition is for our customers to create a software layer that with cloud technology, with Cloud RAN, can enable Vodafone in your case and other operators the ability to expose those functionalities in a far more efficient and effective way that we managed to do possibly on our integrated radio. So you will see that coming over time. With all technologies, Yago, as you know equally as much as I do, probably even better, it takes time to deploy all the relevant interfaces, but we're fully committed to landing there. And of course, we will keep a tight connection with our customers to achieve this together. Again, Yago, to your point, they're innovating together, creating the future together. It's important for our industry. If our customers are not successful in building 5G and monetizing 5G, and if we can find ways of building cloud-native networks to reciprocate that, then I think it's call it a failure for the industry. So we are fully committed to that, and you will see ourselves with continuous releases and deployment in that regard.
That's indeed the case. And you said something I don't want to pass unnoticed. So let me check I understood correctly. You said there is 1 million radios out there that are hardware ready for Open RAN, and you'll be bringing the software that actually upgrades them to Open RAN probably towards late 2024. Is that correct?
I don't want to commit to any particular timelines here, Yago, but we have to, that conversation I'd rather take uniquely with the customers as we meet next time, maybe, Yago, but gradually we'll introduce, and I think it's important because, you know, we need to be a bit open and bold also on what we have in place. And I think it is so that, of course, we've been looking at the readiness, the maturity, this open interface, etc., and the call it and the maturity of those standardized interfaces. And I think the point we wanted to make, while we have a hardware-ready deployment, as we announced a couple of weeks back, now comes the point in time when we work on the software as well to enable that. Again, the more important thing for us is that we figure out to build networks that are more horizontally architected, allowing ourselves and yourselves to build more attractive revenue platforms where developers can innovate upon with network APIs. And that's, by the way, also why we have our global network platform with Vonage as part of our sort of units in Ericsson since about over a year. And that combination of building networks combined with the network APIs, we think will enable a much more agile way of generating and exposing functionalities to developers.
That's remarkable, Fredrik. So thank you so very much for being today with us. Also, thank you for sending a delegate that will stay here and participate in many panels so that the conversation can continue. Guys, definitely
perfect,
remarkable and good news for the industry. So thank you, Fredrik.
Thank you so much, Yago. Look forward to see you soon again.
Very good. So, well, I hope that clarifies. I think you heard it from Fredrik, and I think it's extremely good news for the industry, but it's also extremely good news for Europe that now both of our bigger suppliers are actually embracing Open RAN, and they have firm plans and commitments to deliver it. So that's really good. Now, what's been going on in Vodafone? So let me just take this maybe back to reality a little bit and onto present times. So as you know, we are rolling out Open RAN in the UK. We have currently, as of today, 22 sites live, and Andrea, Dona, our Chief Network Officer, is going to give you many more details, much more color into that. So maybe he will correct me, and by now it's 24 or 23, I don't know. But on Friday, they were 22 in the area of Devon. That is our, what we call golden cluster. We've been working on that cluster to provide acceptance to the system. So we've been scrutinizing performance. And we reached the point at which the performance is actually equal or better than the legacy kit that we're swapping out. So we provided that acceptance to the vendors that we awarded, which means that we are entering into volume rollout, which is remarkably important. Now, that was part of the plan. And if you remember, and we mentioned this plan several times, so we go back on time. We awarded our vendors for the UK in 2021. The RFQ was launched in 2020, and the deployment was 2,500 sites wide. That is still the case, and that is the volume rollout that starts now. Later on that year, 2021, we deployed the first site live in rural, as we said we would do. And then on the following year, we started this Devon cluster in urban. So Open RAN reached urban deployment with that milestone in 2022. 2023, February, I think, if I'm right, we saw the first massive MIMO site integrated, which kind of elevated Open RAN to dense urban ready. And in July, we just moved on to volume rollout. So that's a great story, and it's a great plan, and we've been delivering against that plan without any delays, which is, I think, good news. I know that Open RAN is sometimes, it's like a roller coaster, it's like overhyped, and then there is some, whatever, delusion, deception, or, whatever else. Not for us, really. We've been just doing this steadily and progressing to our plan. Now, what's next? Well, next, by the way, in the UK will be to integrate a third-party massive MIMO. We said we would do that. We are doing that. It's on the lab, and we expect that before Mobile World Congress, we'll see it on the field, which is important because it kind of demonstrates the openness of the interface, and it demonstrates like third-party radio integrated into someone else's software. And we decided to start with massive MIMO because it's the most difficult part, obviously. So, okay, so that is that. But in the bigger agenda, we also said that we would launch an RFQ for Europe. We are actually going to launch an RFQ for all our global footprint, which is 170,000 sites, of which more than 100,000 are in Europe. And we said that we expect 30% of the footprint to go direction Open RAN as a result of that tender. And we still expect that outcome. That's what we've been working in making happen. That's why we have the UK rollout, and that's why having it performing is extremely good news and a good basis for this RFQ. Obviously, you see many suppliers have now plans, and they have Open RAN on their roadmap, which is great. And we're going to use this RFQ to improve the commitment, to improve the specification, and to drive everybody in the industry to commit to what we think Open RAN should be doing by the time that we think it should get there. What else is going on? Well, if that's our plan, there are a couple of things that maybe you've seen in the press this morning that we released. The first one is we announced the first 4G call live in a trial that we have in Romania with Open RAN with our colleagues from Orange on RAN sharing. The stack that we have there is the same as the one we have in the UK. So we are reusing everything we learned in the UK. But what is new is the RAN sharing aspect, particularly because this cluster of sites, there are 5 from Vodafone, 5 from Orange, they are interleaved, so that we are providing seamless, our aim is to be providing seamless service to the customer when they're going to be moving from one site to another, and maybe one is Vodafone and another one is Orange. That is a first step in the direction of something that only Open RAN can actually enable, which is to have a common set of infrastructure with software from different vendors running in different containers. We're not there yet, but we have the first 4G call live. And what's coming next is actually 2G, which was missing from our UK deployment so far, but is not going to be missing for much longer. So we are bringing it live imminently. And after that, eventually, we'll bring 5G as well. So I think it's extremely good news, and we actually announced it, I think it was here last year, that we said we would be exploring opportunities where we have a common footprint with Orange to do RAN sharing with Open RAN. So there you go, we're doing it. Another thing we announced here last year was that Nokia was doing Open RAN, if you remember. It was a similar announcement as the one you saw from Ericsson today, where we were bringing the good news that for the first time, an incumbent European supplier was actually having firm plans to do Open RAN. So you know what? We are actually setting up a trial in Italy with Nokia. And we're going to have a few sites in the northwest of Italy. It will start with 5G SA. We will have it in the lab before the end of this calendar year, and we are aiming to have it in the field in the first quarter of 2024, which is great news. So with all that, so we have good progress, solid progress in the UK with extremely good performance. As I said, Andrea will talk to you further about that. We have an RFQ coming for 170,000 sites. It's probably one of the biggest RFQs the industry has seen for a while, and Open RAN will be central to that RFQ. We will be driving requirements, and we expect 30% of the footprint to go direction Open RAN. And then you will see these two things in the press released this morning. Samsung in Romania, Nokia trial in Italy. But there is one more thing. You remember Malaga? We are doing semiconductors, Open RAN silicon. We set it up at the beginning of last year in 2022. And we remain convinced, fully convinced, that it's absolutely critical for Open RAN to have advanced silicon incorporating the needs and responding to the needs of higher capacity, but also like more sophisticated and sometimes third-party ideas integrated in the silicon itself for advanced technologies, including but not limited to AI, cybersecurity, machine learning. So Malaga is progressing well, and we've been actually taking steps, and our ambition remained to develop a position, to understand the situation, to understand the state of the art, and to understand the art of the possible in the industry, then to be able to understand architectures of silicon, and then to develop a position and without an agenda and completely neutral to say, well, we think that the industry should go in this direction. That remains pretty much our mission, and we are progressing well. Intel was one of the founding partners. When we opened the center in January 2022, Intel was there. So we started our cooperation in actually day one of the center, and they were participating in the mission the way I had just explained. But today we are announcing we are expanding that cooperation. And we have agreed that as part of our mission, understanding what the industry should be taking in terms of advanced algorithms and new technologies, Intel will be producing actual silicon containing that intellectual property in testing sample quantities. What does that mean? Well, it means that we will not stop at advocating. We are already collaborating with many companies that came to work with us in Malaga. We are being exposed to their ideas. We are developing with them. We are co-developing with Intel as well. As a result of all that, you can expect a lot of innovation in terms of algorithms and technologies that eventually will go into silicon. With this agreement, we will actually get the silicon from Texas in enough quantities to develop prototypes that we can then test, verify, and benchmark. So can you imagine how much this is going to accelerate the innovation? Ourselves or companies that are working with us will no longer be limited by the long cycles and the also upfront investments that are required typically to access silicon, even in testing sample quantities. With this, we can funnel all that innovation, we can throw in our own ideas, we can co-create, we can co-develop, we can co-design, and then we can get the silicon and we can prototype to see how it performs in real life. Now, it's not by coincidence that we chose Malaga, and it's not by coincidence that we chose each other either. So we chose Intel as they are immensely strong in silicon, and Intel chose us because of our network credentials. But we both chose Malaga because we think that these two can help improve and retain, keep the European competitiveness, and that's why. And with that, now that is it. So you heard from me, well, you heard from Frederick, actually. Ericsson is doing Open RAN. You heard from me about performance in the UK with Open RAN, but you'll hear more from Andrea himself. Our plans to release an RFQ, which are firm, and you will see it hitting the ground at some point between now and April 24. And you have these two news in the press, so Samsung Romania with Orange, and Nokia Open RAN Italy, and testing silicon in sample quantities. So with that, thank you so very much. I'm gonna leave you in very safe hands with Mr. Abeta-san, VP and GM of RAN development in NTT DOCOMO. Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good morning. I'm Sadayuki Abeta of NTT DOCOMO. I'm very happy to talk with here in Fyuz, and of course after the Ericsson session. So as you know well, so many Open RAN trial we have already in the world, but commercial service is still limited. So today, I'd like to talk about how we can accelerate commercial deployment of Open RAN. So to spread Open RAN in the world, especially in commercial, what's the challenge? So one is that the integration and interoperability test, because this is actually new for most of the operators. Because the previous day, we just used the integrated solutions. But Open RAN, we can choose the best solutions, but we also need to do integration. And second one is the performance and power consumption. However, thanks to the recent chip improvement and also the accelerators improvement, we see that we can significantly improve the performance of that VLAN. And third one is the operational complexity. Since that Open RAN is a multi-vendor network. When we need to update, when we want to update the software or platform, if we integrate the testing every time when each vendor update, it's very complicated. And if that something happening in the network, commercial network, we need to ask all the vendors. And usually vendors said, I'm not wrong. So it takes time. And fourth one is that price. Because we started the Open RAN in commercial in small space, not largely widespread, especially at the beginning time. These may include the TCO. So how we can improve the TCO? That is a challenge. To solve this challenge, how we minimize the cost, additional cost, how we can share the experience, how we can support the commercial deployment. So DOCOMO creates Open RAN ecosystem experience, OREX. So OREX, what is OREX? We maintain the flexibility. That means that even though that this is like a single vendor solution, but the operator can choose the different vendor solutions. And we shared experience. And we also share the cost. I mean that integration and interoperability test cost, for example, by sharing that result. And also try to simplify the operation. This is OREX. And how this OREX can collaborate with other tests like OTAC and TIP. Here is a very simplified test process. So as you see, first, when the deploy are developed, and they do that unit test with some tool. And we will do that some interoperability test. And then test for commercial, especially acceptance test. And we also need to maintain that. So we need a regression test when we update the software. So OREX can cover, but if we can collaborate with OTIC and TIP, especially that first stage like interoperability test, then we can significantly reduce the cost. And what OREX do, as mentioned that we have the partners, we are working with multiple partners, so we have a multi-vendor solutions for each layer. So we have as you see, so many partners we have for the software, or cloud, accelerator, and also that cost server. And this time, we also established OREX RU partners. So we will do the interoperability test with OREX RU partners. Because the frequency band is different from the countries, we need to provide best solution for each country. So working together with both RU side and the VLAN side, we can provide the best solutions. Of course, according to that operator's requirement or request, we can use different RU vendors and also different vendor solutions. But we will provide package solution. That means pre-integrated solutions. So operators do not need to do the integration by themselves. We do the integration. And we share the integration result to minimize the cost. So if we can share that integration result among the 5 operators, simply say that we can divide 5. And this OREX, what we provide. So as mentioned, we provide package solutions. One is the VLAN itself, and also the RU. As mentioned, according to the operator's requirement, we can choose. And we also provide SMO. Actually, we have just published SMO white paper together with Vodafone last week, how we can use the SMO, how we need SMO together with existing system. So we provide a white paper. And we also can support some services, because it depends on the operators. So if operator needs some integration to their existing system, like a VSS, we'll provide solution together with a partner. And if need some operational support, we have a long experience of that operation itself. We are very old operator, actually, but we try to do the new things every time. And finally, I'd like to share our investigation of that to introduce that Open RAN in commercial. We just announced we launched the VLAN in commercial last month using that latest accelerators. And we do the TCO analysis. This TCO analysis includes everything. I mean, not just the VLAN part, but also we consider the network architecture, how we can optimize. This actually depends on the country. Japan case, we have fiber, so we have a more centralized network. In some country, maybe DU is on site, and only CU can centralize. So the value may be changed, but we see that we can improve that TCO by operation point, by the centralized node, and also that using the cloud servers. And we also see that reduction of power consumption. This also includes not only that VLAN part, but also that we control that RU based on the traffic through the SMO. And also, we configure the network together with the core network and data centers. Then we can totally reduce that servers, number of servers. Then, in total, of course, there are the improvement of the VLAN part using that accelerators. But in total, we see that up to 50% power consumption improvement. And also, with SMO, we can see that reduction of that network design operation. So that's all my presentation. Thank you very much for joining me.
Very much, Abeta-san. It's always a pleasure to listen to you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your passion and perseverance in bringing Open RAN. So for the next session, we thought we would have a little chat between us.
Yeah.
And maybe we can invite Rob Sonny, VP of RAN Development in AT&T. Good to see you, Mr.
Yeah, good to see you.
Please take a seat. Get yourselves comfortable. So we said this morning, industrializing Open RAN, in general, disaggregated solutions, and in particular, Open RAN, is probably the next frontier. Also, I think the theme of this conference is, of course, grow together and about collaboration. So I thought I would ask you maybe to comment from your perspective to start about the challenges that are holding back adoption or slowing down Open RAN. And interestingly, we are from different regions, so we represent Europe and Africa, America, Asia. So maybe you can just give the flavor of your region, or maybe answer globally as you like. So Rob, you want to start? What are the challenges holding back adoption?
Sure. So first, thank you, Yago, for inviting me to join you here. It's heady times. Anytime you see a Fyuz conference headlined by Frederick talking about openness, it's all going to make us stop and pause, right? So I've started my journey on the operator side just a little over a year ago. And for many of my former vendor friends, I was on the vendor side for 25 years. So I kind of understand the challenges of the vendor, maybe even a little bit better than that of the operator at the moment, given I only have 1 year as an operator. But the challenges of openness are well known because I think I helped start the openness programs at Nokia and then also at VMware. So, in principle, it's a very simple problem when it comes to the vendor community, and I'll circle back to the operator side in a minute. You can break the vendors into two pieces, and the vendors are those who are disruptors, non-incumbent, as well as those who are incumbent vendors. So for the disruptors, the non-incumbents, the challenge we have is actually the challenge of the operators. The operators are slow to spend, slow to make decisions. In the meantime, they have to invest a lot to be successful. And so can they gain enough scale, investment in technology, and build their teams and build their capabilities while waiting for the operators to make decisions, which, as I find in a company like AT&T, as much as I enjoy working there, do take time. And I know it frustrates a lot of those on the vendor side. So I think that the challenge for them is clear of waiting, but also making those right investments and being able to get to a common base of requirements and a common base of solutions that they can use to address whether it is Vodafone or it is DOCOMO or it is AT&T, and move forward in a dramatic way. For the incumbent guys, well, they're my friends. I spent a long time with them. So I cannot say anything wrong against them or anything bad against them, but they're locked in that classic innovator's dilemma. This is the new thing. And the question is does the new thing actually generate new business for them? Or finally, does it cannibalize their existing business? So for those of you who are students of Clayton Christensen and you know exactly the story specifically around the innovator's dilemma, you know that the challenge that you face. How much investment can you make in new solutions while not risking your value in the existing ones? You heard Frederick talk about $3 billion in R&D investment. I've heard Nokia talk about $2 billion in R&D investment. We know what some of the disruptors are spending. They publish it. I won't comment on it, but it's a fraction of that. So in the end, if they can carve out the right amount of R&D investment without somehow disrupting their existing product, then of course they can get to a product. But finally, for both sides are facing challenges to get to feature parity, performance parity. But none of this can be lost really finally to say, okay, we are looking for innovation. We're really looking for opportunities that don't just tip the TCO scale, but actually give us a change in user experience, a change in the way that we do things, so that move both our top and our bottom lines together. So I think this is the challenge for them. For the operators themselves, it's to get the timing itself correct. We are all in different stages of refresh cycles. You are at a different stage than us. We, like you, are also trialing with the incumbents, running 3 trials actually in parallel with live commercial traffic. We just completed a significant trial for the RAN Intelligent Controller, which is public with Nokia. So there are a lot of activity going on behind the scenes. We issued several tenders in the last year. We are near completion on one around SMO. We are near completion around one on CAS. We will issue a new one specifically around hardware. So there's a lot of activity, all trying to time it specifically with an opportunity for refresh in the network.
Thank you, Rob. Abeta-san?
Yep. So DOCOMO is the operators, and I worked at DOCOMO for a long time. So I have experience only the operator side, But now is that ORX is a provider solution to that operators. It's kind of the vendors. So I now understand how that the challenge for the vendors side. But one thing that I would like to add that Rob mentioned that the R&D cost. So if that each vendor have the same R&D cost for the against the incumbent vendor, that is almost impossible. But the good things for the Open RAN is that we have the server vendor, we have the OCloud vendor, we have the accelerator vendor, we have software vendors. So each vendor's R&D cost may not large enough that of that incumbent vendor, but joint R&D cost. So product itself, the joint product. So if we can consider the joint R&D cost, that actually is a huge R&D investigation we can do. And there are the competition, even though the Open RAN vendors, I believe that there is innovation, because not only that is a competition in incumbent vendor, but also within that ORAN vendor. So they provide that significant new solutions or better solutions. For example, that accelerators improvement in the current days is very good. They provide very good power consumption solutions. Of course, that is still the development phase, not commercialized yet. But together with those solutions, I think that we can provide that good solutions. And as for the operators, one of the challenges is how we can increase the revenue with 5G or Open RAN. Especially at the executive level, when we talk, every time, how we can improve the revenue, how we can provide new solutions, new services with Open RAN. So Open RAN is a network, but the executive expect new solutions, new services. And we are now doing that analysis or investigation of that VLAN and how we can share the server between the LAN, core, data center. That means that also includes the MEC. And thanks to that optical fiber in Japan, we can flexibly configure our network and put on the services sometimes go to that edge. Of course, it depends. But if we can, share that those, for example, that LAN CU side and UPF in core and data centers, and if we can also share the service among the operators, since we use that cost server, it's very easy to reuse or introduce such services other countries. So now we are, of course, talking about the network itself, but I think it might be better extended our knowledge or experience to the service side, and sharing that experience among the operators. That's, I think, helpful to introduce that Open RAN in commercial.
It's fascinating to listen to you two describing challenges for adoption, because it doesn't matter the region. It looks like many of our problems, challenges, are actually common. So let me maybe just throw my own view, and then I'll ask you to briefly comment on what you would like to see, in the industry solutions for faster adoption. But I would say my favorite challenge would probably be in the area of system integration. As in, at the end, no matter what part of the network you are disaggregating, you have now to procure the elements from different players, arguably closer to origin, but then you have to put it all together, either yourself or through someone that can help you. In our case, for getting to where we are in the UK, and in general for going forward as well, we decided to take on that ourselves. So we decided to be our own system integration, which is fine, but you have to admit that if everybody does that in isolation, the industry will end up with a level of duplication that will actually just challenge Open RAN or any disaggregated solution to be competitive, particularly in cost, with incumbent solutions. So, while it's working for us and we're happy, we appreciate, and maybe moving to the next question I'm going to ask you, we appreciate that the industry needs more collaboration, not just in togetherness, not just in us talking between us or sharing problems, which is great. It's a great start, but in a coordination, a coordinated effort, probably an entity that can coordinate the effort in every single operator and supplier that is out there to make sure that the effort is deduplicated and the integration is as fast and as efficient as it can be. But what would be your take, Rob?
Yeah, I think I can resonate with that in particular, coming from where I came from, as well as what we've been noticing amongst the vendors and their preference specifically on who they want to work with. So there's definitely a strong presence, a strong tendency towards pre-integrating with maybe one or two partners. So we find if we take a RAN vendor on the network function side, they have preference for CAS, they have preference for hardware, they have preference for radio. The whole idea behind Open RAN was to give the operator the ability to make the choice. So in the end, what ends up happening is if we don't accept those solutions, then we spin ourselves back into the integration cycle again of having to make decisions or also accept time to market differences and cost differences for solutions that aren't pre-integrated. So you hit the nail on the head in that we have to move into a space where we can start to coordinate across the different entities that are a combination of government-sponsored, operator-sponsored, vendor-sponsored, get some kind of orchestration going. I think Alex told me quite proudly about the 15 OTICs that are now established by the ORAN Alliance, with now 20 soon to be established. Of course, we're building our own capabilities. You're building your own capabilities. They're building their own capabilities. We have some, or at least we hope to get some support from government sponsors to accelerate this. I think there's already support and sponsorship from the government in Japan and Korea and in India. Sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's just creating the impetus to drive towards it. But you can't understate it. I mean, for those of you who on the operator side and aren't aware, those numbers that are spent today on R&D, they're staggering by the incumbents. But what you find out is if you look underneath the hood and see what percentage they're spending on integration of their own components in a closed ecosystem world where they control the hardware, they control the platform, they control the radio, they control the application and the network management. In that case, $1 in $3 R&D dollars is spent in integration and validation. So the only opportunity for Open RAN to catch up to that ecosystem and provide performance and feature parity, but also leapfrog in terms of its capabilities, is really for us to pool. So the reason why I came here in particular was to meet you and to meet you. We meet frequently enough on the phone or otherwise, but the reality is I think the operator partnership has to continue to drive. Because what we hear a lot from the vendors is that they don't have consistent requirements from the operators on Open RAN. They don't have a consistent test environment. And then, of course, there's almost always the complaint about immature specifications. We did work very closely, both with our vendor partners and our operator partners, to unbreak what to me was a 5-year, maybe 6-year backlog on the open front haul. I will say that if you were to query the vendors 6 to 9 months ago of whether we truly had an open front haul interface specification that worked, could agree, and was, workable between the different parties, the simple answer would have been no. But now, after a lot of work with our partners, I'll give credit to Ericsson, I'll give credit to Nokia, I'll give credit to them for working with us and to say, let's get to a compromise. I know some people in the press have said they don't like it, and maybe they were like, okay, it was nobody likes compromises. But what we tried to do was create an environment where we felt that the ecosystem would have the opportunity to choose what's the best way to do massive MIMO radio.
Very well said. Abeta-san, your view?
Yep. So I think Rob mentioned a lot already. And one thing that I explained already, that how we collaborate is TIP and also that OTIC. And OTIC now, Rob mentioned that we have many OTICs, but we just now started some discussion about how we collaborate among the OTICs. Because OTIC doing that interoperability tests for each, but at this moment, I think that each OTIC have their own test program and test bed. And we DOCOMO also have the test bed. And we are more focusing on the commercial side rather than that so basic interoperability tests. Yeah, if that is so basic interoperability tests like M-plane, C-plane tests done by OTIC, we can significantly reduce the cost for that commercial integration test or acceptance test. So I think there are the huge reason to collaborate with OTICs and also TIP, because the TIP is also focused on that so certifications, and so that's targeting the commercial. But for commercial, we also need to maintain the software every half year or every year, and also need to do some regression test with that legacy system, and we need to do the UE legacy UE test because to whether it works or not. So, but if one company do everything, it's a very high cost. How to share, how to collaborate is very important. So incumbent beta case, they do that test by themselves and provide the same solution to that different operators. I think we also need to do the similar things. We do have some blueprint, for example, and provide the solution to that multiple operators, and considering the commercial quality. Then I think more easy to introduce the equipment in commercial.
That's remarkable. I think it's a great summary on what's going on and real life challenges and real life solutions as well. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very good. So we're going to move now back to Vodafone, and as I promised, I'm going to leave you with our Chief Network Officer in the UK, Andrea Dona, who's going to talk to you about what really went on in the UK. He's going to show you some KPIs and maybe answer some of the questions that are on your mind. So welcome to stage, Andrea Dona.
Morning, Yago. Morning, everyone, and welcome to this fantastic stage. It is as cool as the technology we're bringing to the market. I was delighted when Yago and Tip asked me to present here today and share the Vodafone UK experiences on this emerging technology. I know that Open RAN is subject of some really intense, fierce debates and conversations. And I'm here today to try and shift that conversation to, rather than it being a debate on whether it really truly delivers on the promise, and convince you all with real facts from the ground that Open RAN is a reality. No more theory, No more proof of concepts, but it's real, it's on the ground. So let me start off with giving you a bit of a view of our journey, our relatively short journey of introducing this technology from a Vodafone UK perspective. We started back in 2019 at the Royal Welsh Showground with our first live deployment. Then we had an RFQ where we went out and selected our partners. It was a very intense process, wanting to select the best in breed for the various elements of the Open RAN chain. Delighted to say that we have some amazing partners helping us on that journey. And then we went live on a commercial site. I was very adamant with the team to say we need to bring it to commercial traffic as quickly as possible. And we did so in 2021 with a site in Bath, near Bath, serving live enterprise customer traffic, a customer of ours that is close to that site. We then established a test lab in Newbury, where all the different components come together and are tested for interoperability. But also very importantly, that lab did not start afresh without learning from other labs, similar labs across the world. And we took the best learnings from labs in NTT and other such places. We brought them into the UK. So that is a real state-of-the-art lab. And I'm delighted to say that all of that hard work in what is a relatively short period of time has come to life with a cluster, a golden cluster, 2 golden clusters in Torquay and Exeter, in Exmouth to be precise, where we have deployed 16 sites to really test this new technology in an urban setup. But I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. As Yago said, we have given the green light for mass rollout. The acceptance has passed, and we're delighted that now we're moving to a BAU phase of the program. All of this journey has been supported by very strong, substantial support from the UK government in the Diversification Task Force. And we've got initiatives like FRANC, the Future Radio Access Competition, supporting 14 R&D consortia to focus on things like efficiency, security, spectrum, and softwareization. But also the open network ecosystem, one very important R&D initiative with several £100 million support to focus on 4 strategic pillars: the maturity of products, the maturity of services. How do you really inject and trigger the innovation ecosystem to come and embrace this new space? The third area was to creating the right environment and the right testing setups where we can truly put these various components to the test. And then finally, drive adoption. So with that support, we've come thus far. I want to focus a bit more on the golden cluster, because this is really where you have the breakthrough moment, where things really come together, where all the work that has happened over the years comes to the fore. I'm delighted to say 16 sites were delivered. 16 sites were delivered in a brownfield setup, in an urban area, with that sort of population, 33,000 and 60,000. And it's cross-functional and cross-vendor, and you can see from the vendors on the right, there was a lot of skepticism whether we could do that. Could you truly, Vodafone UK, bring together such disparate vendors and deliver on the end-to-end promise? Yes, we can. Here it is. You can drive today. I go and visit my daughter. She studies in Exeter. I can go there and actually see the sites performing. It was a breakthrough moment, not only because it triggers a different ways of working amongst the various partners. It gives you a different mindset in leaning into each other, left and right of your ownership of the chain, and ensuring that no one is defensive about something not working, but actually truly collaborative in trying to fixing it and optimizing the end-to-end chain. And the benefit, the end result of that optimization and that real new innovative mindset in trying to ensure that the whole piece stitches up together brilliantly is in the next slides. 90% of all the KPIs are either the same or better than the legacy kit that we're swapping out. Yes, we have some amber areas. Yes, we have some areas to improve. But considering the trajectory we've been on, where we've started and where we're going to, I'm confident with the latest software releases from our partners, we will close those gaps. We will have 100% of our KPIs that are better than our vendor. And this is a fact. Yago talked earlier, and I love the fact that Yago knows his numbers. He was right. The 16 sites are now 22 as of Friday. We've got a further 2 this week and a further 5 before the end of the month. Every single one of those sites is actually better than the picture here because they're on the latest software and they're performing better. So it's not that we're introducing something new live in the network that takes a step back in terms of customer performance. They're actually performing according to this. And what I'm particularly proud of, and what is a remarkable feat in producing this, is working together amongst numerous departments, both inside Vodafone, but also with our partners. As I showed you earlier, to get that stack to performing together, well together and fully tuned to deliver this stat is not easy, but we've done it. I'm really proud of that. Short term, we're going to cover all the existing gaps and ensure they're all above the expected performance. Let's see what's next. I was very clear to the team that this introduction of Open RAN is not just a new technology, but it's also a vehicle to truly transform our operations. So absolutely need the automation that a cloud-native solution brings. It is the vehicle by which we change the way that we operate, the way that we change the way that we deploy and integrate and commission and service the sites. I need the operational efficiency to come through. I need a reduced cost of total cost of capital and an improved network performance as we've seen. Yago mentioned earlier, we will bring new hardware and software to replace 2G. We have introduced massive MIMO in the urban areas, but we're going to introduce a third vendor of massive MIMO. New silicon, Yago talked about it as well, really important to have the next generation of general purpose processing so that we get the much needed efficiency that was discussed also earlier. Today, from a total cost of ownership, we've had a 30% reduction already with Open RAN. We need more. We need more for a sustainable growth in our networks, for a sustainable growth of our business. And I'm confident that by growing the ecosystem of partners, having more competition, true competition on the ground, and exciting new entrants into the market, especially from a system integration perspective, with that culture of knowledge sharing and innovation, we will get a further improvement in efficiency, in TCO reduction, and improved network performance. Let me deep dive automation a bit more. We have been very focused to do a full end-to-end automation of various use cases. From a rollout perspective, the top one, from an assurance and optimization perspective, the middle one, and from a testing and upgrading and a lifecycle management on the bottom one. We're using the inherent characteristics and nature that are inbuilt in Open RAN as drivers for that. And by automating the end-to-end process in these 3 dimensions, the rollout, the optimization, and the upgrades, we will get very clear gains as depicted on the right-hand side, which is reduction of cost, improved performance, and increased operational efficiency. Let me deep dive a bit more and bring some more substance to this statement. And you can say, how true is this, Andrea? How true is this, these proof points? Well, here you go. The traditional RAN, we would do hardware and software commissioning on site. It would be semi-manual, and you'd do manual testing. We've all been there. We've all been on site. We've all been on the phone talking to our integration and commissioning engineers and saying, why is it taking so long? Well, it's taking so long because I'm in Bath. It's cold. It's raining. I have to shut the cabinets. I can't spend 4 hours with the cabinets open, etc., etc. It takes 4 hours. That's the baseline where we started. Today, as things stand today, with great collaboration with our vendors, we're starting to do pre-staging at the vendors' facilities. We've got semi-manual integration on site. That also helps me solve a very, very clear problem I have, not only Vodafone has, but all of the telco operators in the UK, having enough people to do all the stuff that we need, having enough engineers. But if I can reduce the time from 4 hours to 2.5 hours, I free up engineers' time to be able to do more. The semi-manual testing as well frees up the times. I don't need super experts, which are hard to come by, but I can use more apprentices, reducing my cost base because it's more automated, it's more control from the center. If I take that to the next stage with remote integrations and automatic testing, that comes down to 1.5. I have a 60% reduction in testing time. I can double the number of sites I integrate in a particular day. Long term, I want to plug and play, one-click deployment, you go in, you plug it, and then continuous testing and deployment, giving me an 80%. As I said earlier, however, you need to look beyond it just simply being a time and resource improvement. It is, if you look at the bigger picture, it is a blueprint for success. I can take what we've established in the UK and lift it and shift it and apply it in Romania to my colleagues there. As one technology team, a fully integrated one technology team in Vodafone, as a group, I can take that and reapply that and design once and then deploy many. And it is, as I said throughout the presentation, a vehicle for true digital transformation, opening the door for genuine disruption and genuine new entrants into the market. I hope I've convinced you. These are the facts. There's a lot more facts, but my time is up, and hopefully you enjoyed that. Thanks very much, and have a very successful conference. Thank you.
Please welcome Eugenia Jordan, Chief Marketing Officer at Telecom Infra Project.
What an amazing case study. Thank you, Andrea, for presenting it here. Greetings, everyone. What an incredible way to start day one at Fyuz. We'll dive in more case studies on Open RAN, Open Wi-Fi, and Open Optical. So let me introduce our next Open RAN case study. It's with Dish Wireless. So let me welcome on stage Sid Chinamolo, VP Technology Development with Dish Wireless, and Manish Singh, Telco System Business with Dell Technologies. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm so excited about this case study.
Great to be here first. Yeah, great to be here, absolutely.
Welcome, welcome. So let's dive in. What the audience wants to know: what were the challenges and lessons learned from integrating, testing, and operating Dish Wireless network at scale?
First thing. Well, I'll go first, Manish. Sorry. So first, it's great to be here. In fact, just a history. The last time I was at a summit, it was called TIP Summit back in 2019 in Amsterdam. And when I came to that summit, I had no idea what we were doing. But now, 3 years later, we have deployed a nationwide network with completely open RAN systems. 15,000 plus sites, 70% plus population covered, and doing great. So thank you, everyone. Now,
yes.
It's been quite a journey, and there are quite a bit of learnings as part of that. Probably time is not enough, so I'll hit the key ones. We had challenges at the 3GPP level. We had challenges at the Open RAN level. We had challenges at the virtualization level. Now, we overcame all of them. It's a testament that we have the latest iPhone on our network. So if most of you who has been using iPhone, something to know is that Apple has a very stringent requirement of network performance. What it basically says is that Open RAN is performing as the traditional ones today and certified. Second, on the O-RAN side, we had our own front haul M-plane model that we had to work with our vendors, and finally we extended the capabilities of the O-RAN standard itself to make it work for us. So that was one. But the third one on the virtualization, just to set the stage, it's not just a DU-RU integration in Open RAN. There are over a dozen components that need to be integrated. And with partners like Dell, and I probably should give it to Manish to speak about it, how they helped us solve the problem of integration of these dozen components.
Yeah, thank you, Sid. Pleasure to be here. And first of all, congratulations to Dish on actually getting the network up and running, the first nationwide open network, open RAN network at large scale.
Thank you.
And it's been truly a privilege for us as partners to really have a front row seat, working very closely with Dish to really see this network built out, rolled out, and turned up. The learnings are many. I mean, in terms of as we went through the journey, but just picking a few ones. First and foremost, as Sid said, integration, bringing the ecosystem together, working through that, building the capabilities with the partners to do all that integration testing, and not do that once, but do it on a continuous basis. There's also learnings around automation. So when you are deploying the infrastructure out there, this is no more about compute servers sitting in a data center. This is compute servers out and about. And how do you automate that? So there were a lot of learnings, because that's what brings the operational efficiencies. That in turn translates into TCO. Yep. But also, last but not the least, I would say also learning in terms of, from an operator's perspective, different kind of skills, really tuning the process, and having worked with Dish very closely, right from on the technology side, procurement, planning, deployment, support. It requires a different mindset to consume technology from an open, disaggregated ecosystem, and that requires transformation on the operator side as well.
Absolutely. So we talked a lot about automation, how it helps with integration. And you highlighted you've already deployed 15,000 sites, covering 70% population in the US. What is the future of Dish Networks? Where are you taking it? And what technological or automation advantages or upskilling strategies you're going to be using?
Yeah, good one. So by the way, when I say automation, right, thanks to Dell and partners, we were able to achieve over 1,000 sites a week. We were able to bring over 1,000 sites a week online, pure through automation, without a single site install, site visit. So,
where's the mic?
So we can, scale has been achieved. But where do we go from here? It's a good question. So first is, we are continuing going to expand our network build. We have another milestone to hit, where we're going to go to little rural parts of the country and keep on expanding our network build. We have additional spectrum that's coming online, mostly on the TDD side. So that's a business as usual for us. The part where we are going to invest a lot from the technology front is going to be on the RIC side. We're going to leverage the machine learning aspects of the RIC and say, how do we make it from an automated network to a programmable network? So that would be the major shift for us. We are done with the build-out. Now it's about scaling. It's now to make it programmable and make it ready for all the use cases that 5G has envisioned. Let's say machine learning. Then other area that we're going to invest a lot is on the silicon side. When we started the journey, we were, I think, on a Skylake box, Skylake server from, and by the way, that did not even look like a server. It was just a PLC box, in my opinion. Compared to where we went through Cascade Lake, and now we're at Sapphire Rapids with all the advancements in the silicon and the networking, et cetera. We'll continue to invest in there. We're excited to see a lot more L1 accelerators coming to the market, so that will be one area. So there will be silicon advancements, and there will be programmability advancements, in my opinion.
So you're basically going to put your automation on steroids and your silicon on steroids.
I want the machine to do the automation, not me.
Well done, well done.
Yeah.
So what are your plans for the future of?
I think just building on Sid's point, I mean, first and foremost, really advancing the platforms, the compute platforms for the newer silicon. So we started with XR11, now going towards XR8000, Sapphire Rapids CE, modular design, grounds-up design for RAN-like workloads with sled-based designs and all, bringing the right form factor, NEPS compliance, all those boxes that are very much needed. But then the next big layer is automation. And I mean, it's really heartening to see how, as Sid mentioned, the speed at which Dish is rolling out, and that's all about automation. So really working on our bare metal orchestration, BMO, building that capability where you can automate, deploy infrastructure with a click of a button and keep it refreshed and updated on a continuous basis. We heard from the previous speaker also a bit about integration challenges. So the next thing we are looking at is working with the partners on the CAS layer side and take our server platforms, integrate that, bring more factory integrated solutions, enabling a multi-cloud vision with our infrastructure blocks. And we are working with partners, Wind River, Red Hat, and others that we are in discussions with to really bring that multi-cloud vision to life, but do all that integration heavy lifting and make it easier for the operators to consume this open, disaggregated ecosystem. And then last but not the least, I would say the other big area for focus for us is our OTEL, our Open Telecom Ecosystem Lab, where we've put the whole SIP platform, the CI/CD engine, which again is all about convening and coordinating the efforts with an open ecosystem to do testing, validation, but do that on a continuous basis. So those are some of the key areas that we are very much focused on.
The future. The
Yes.
future is open.
Yeah.
So the audience wants to know, what are 3 key strategies that helped you deploy 15,000 sites, I love that number, in how many years? Less than 3 years?
Less than a year and a half, actually.
A year and a half. What are 3 key strategies?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Again, my view, I think one thing that we did good, actually probably very good, was that have an excellent program management team. Technology is never the limiting factor. It's mostly the people and process. So we were ahead on the technology side, but when we got first year, we were testing, trialing, testing everything. But then we figured out that we need to get the village together to make it happen at a rapid pace. So have a very good program management team. That doesn't have to be technologists, but people who come together and make it work for you and pull all the strings that are required. So that's number 1 in my list. Second one, do not try to do everything. Trust in your partners. Now, where I say is that again, ours was a unique case because all this started during COVID, and I really hope it doesn't happen again. We outsourced all the testing, majority of it, because we relied and believed in our partners to do majority of the testing. When they were done with the testing, we bought it in-house for integration. But testing was outsourced, integration was insourced. The third is, I think, table stakes. Pick the right partners. Pick the partners whom you believe in, who believe you, and who are going to stand with you to make it happen.
Great takeaways.
Thank you.
Program management, right partners, and right team. What about you, Manish?
Yeah, I think just building on what Sid said, the key takeaway is, number 1, exactly as he said, the right partners. I think the partners who bring the right technology capabilities, but most importantly, the mindset of working in an open, disaggregated telecom ecosystem. I think the second part of it that I would say is on the operator side, I mean, and Dish has clearly led the way on that, in terms of really transforming the process and the skills to really convene and consume an open ecosystem. It's very different from how you would build the networks of the legacy monolithic architectures to a cloud-native architecture. So there's definitely the second piece in there. And third thing I would say is automation, automation, automation. There's always a lot of this talk around TCO and all. Well, the way to really attack that is around automation. And as I said, I mean, 15,000 sites now up and running, all automated, continuously upgraded, maintained, et cetera. That's the key. So make sure that that automation layer is built as part of the technology stack, and that's key.
Automation, automation, automation. So, before we wrap up, I have one question. Knowing what you know now, what you would have done differently when you started this journey?
One thing or two things?
As many as you can. We have a minute and a half.
All right, sorry. Let me do two things. Hardware and software disaggregation. We started with that model in our mind, but somehow, somewhere in the middle, we started combining hardware dependencies of the software and vice versa. I would probably not do that. I would let both hardware and software run independently, innovate at their own scale, at their own pace. I think if we start integrating them together or start talking about dependencies, it becomes monolithic again. So that's one. The second one I'd probably redo is the hiring process. As an Open RAN operator, you are not just an operator, you're also a system integrator by itself. So the skill set that are required are quite different. It's not just about operating, it's about the knowledge of the system inside out. So I would definitely have a different hiring process for that.
And different job descriptions.
Yes.
Absolutely. And now, Manish, what would have you done differently?
A lot more upfront integration, as I talked about in case of our multi-cloud vision, working with the CAS partners to create these infrastructure blocks. I wish we had them just at the start of the journey, would have made things even more efficient, more simpler, more faster. So it's a journey. Everybody is learning as the networks are transforming. But yeah, I would say that would have been one thing that we would have done. But in closing, I would also say this. I mean, Dish has started the networks up and running at a nationwide scale. Many of the operators here I know are on this journey. But let this be very clear. The future is about an open, disaggregated telecom ecosystem where multi-cloud and cloud-native technologies are going to drive. So I know some of the operators have not started the journey, and I would really call for action is get initiated. It's a journey. It's a transformation. And so getting started on that and get ready for the future.
And maybe in a year and a half, you will have 15,000 sites running on Open RAN. Well done, gentlemen. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes!
Thank you.
Thank you.
What an amazing case study. So the next one, I'm going to introduce Lloyd Mphahlele from MTN, and he's going to cover an amazing case study on Open RAN. Amazing progress, sites deployed. So Lloyd, please welcome, and just show them what you've done.
Thank you, Eugenia. By the way, that's the Russian version of my surname. If you really want to say it correctly, that's Mphahlele, but I've already forgiven her, but she's made a very good attempt. Thank you so much. My name is Lloyd Mphahlele. I'm the General Manager responsible for Transport and OSS tools. In MTN, I'm very excited to be here this year to really share the story of MTN in this journey of open and disaggregation. Last year I was here, very exciting. We're in the planning phase, talking about a lot of things we're going to be doing in the future. And today I hope to excite you with what we've managed to achieve as MTN. First off, just a little bit about MTN as a company. As most of you may or may not know, MTN is a leading Pan-Africanist telecom operator in Africa. We operate across 19 markets, mainly in Africa, and just a bit, in the Middle East. We've been rated by Brand Finance as one of the most valuable, African, brands in Africa. And I think what is key to note here is that we've been rated, the most valuable brand for 4 years in a row, which means, there must be something, we're doing right. We have almost 292 million, subscribers as of June of, this year. Very, very proud, and growing. And one of the things that, we aspire to do is to ensure that we deliver the best customer experience, to our customers. And this, as you can see, we are number 1 in 11 of our markets, despite some of the macroeconomic, headwinds that, we're facing. We've got a firm, belief that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life, and attached to that is our strategic intent that, to lead, digital solutions for Africa's progress. And we do this through what we call Ambition 2025, which is our business strategy, which focuses on platform business in the fintech, digital enterprise, network, and API markets. All right, without any further ado, talking about the open and disaggregated networks in transport. This is underpinned by what we call the CASI framework. It's a concept that we came up with in MTN, which was acclaimed outside of MTN international. We're so proud about that. It helps us to deliver high quality, resilient, scalable, and intelligent transport network cost efficiently to support operations, high performance, and still help us to be competitive in the market. Okay, so this is the story that I'd like to share with you today from an MTN perspective. This has been a journey, as you can see, that started back in 2016, a journey that I am personally proud of. There's a lot that we've learned along the way. There have been a lot of achievements, and I hope to maybe inspire you today by what we've managed to achieve from an open and disaggregated transport. Something that for some was just perhaps a pie in the sky concept, but we've managed to tangibly demonstrate that this is the way to go, particularly considering some of the CapEx and OpEx challenges with the ever-growing and complex multi-vendor networks that we have. So in 2016, we joined OPT, and then we've managed to make significant contributions from incubation all the way to where we're going now, focusing on scale. Very, very, very proud to have contributed to the white paper that standardized the open SDN network architecture. Very proud to have been the first in Africa to trial the DCSG technology in the lab. And in 2021, to put the rubber to the road, we have managed to do a large-scale deployment in 2 of our markets, in Uganda and in Cameroon. So, just to prove the concept, in the network, we did the overlay network in Uganda, and then we moved on to Cameroon to do, a direct-to-existing network, field trial. As we speak today, these network routers are in the network, maintaining the same level of, KPIs availability as we speak. A proof that, this is real. That as well was first in our continent, and we are proud about that. So if there was ever a question that, what do I do? Do I forklift what I have today to introduce, the open and disaggregated solution? The answer is simply no. You can coexist using the same network management, system to do that. And, one of the things to show that we as MTN believe in what we are doing, we have now introduced this as a category, in transport, and we've run an RFP with some of, the vendors. We've managed to select them from a technology perspective, and we are in advanced, discussions with, on the commercial side, with some of, the familiar names in the space. So we've got Ribbon, we've got Edgecore, we've got Ceragon, more on the hardware side, and then we've got IP Infusion, we've got Adva on the, the software side. And from the SI perspective, as you know, because it's a disaggregated solution, we need to put it together. From a system integration point of view, we also have NEC, Aviat, as well as Ceragon once again, on this side. So we're very, very proud of what we've managed to achieve, in this space. Just quickly on the, the benefits, as you all know, most of the operators know, this is an issue that we all face, the lock-in from the vendor, particularly where you have a multi-vendor, situation. So this is very, very important. Democratizing, the environment, to open it up a little bit so that, we realize, the CapEx and OpEx, benefit from there. We continue, to develop as we are also, involved in other phases, except, the IP side. We are on the optical side, as well as, the microwave side. So just quickly and just wrapping up, our story, I think it is important for us to also acknowledge, the partners, some of, the global tier 1 operators that, we work with. I think most critically, we started off in 2020 with the white paper, and we collaborated with the likes of T-Mobile, Telia, Vodafone, Telefónica, Orange, and we've grown. I mean, we started at 6, and now today, as we speak, we are 11, including China Mobile, Texel, Team, Colt, as well as Airtel. I think what is key here, and I mean, I just wanted to go through what we've done, in Mast as well, but I think what is important, and if you look at the bottom, right block, we were testing in South Africa the open optical solution, the Phoenix, solution. And at the time of us preparing this, we were going for the silver badging. So I'm very, very happy to announce that we have the silver badge today, which means then that, the solution is almost there to be deployable in the network, allowing us to go on RFQs. And we are in the process of, going towards, the gold badging. Very, very, very proud of that. So the key message here today is that, the open and disaggregated solution, it's something to be considered inside of MTN. We ran, the RFP particularly for the DCSG, and we can put it toe-to-toe today with the integrated solution at a much, discounted rate, which gives it a hook for adoption. So I'm very, very excited about that, and I thank you for the opportunity.
MTN.
Yeah,
well done, Lloyd. Yes, well done. A lot of innovation happening in MTN. Thank you very much.
Much appreciate the opportunity and the privilege. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. So, next, let me invite for another OPT case study, Cayetano Carbajo from Telefónica. He is the Director of Core Transport and Service Platforms. Let's give him a nice round of applause.
Good morning. As you heard, I'm Cayetano Carbajo. I'm responsible for Core and Transport in Telefónica. And it is my pleasure to be here today for talking about our experiences in Telefónica about open transport and the plans we have for open transport. In Telefónica, we are not only disaggregating transport. So we see disaggregation in a holistic way. we see disaggregation all around our network. For instance, we have from CPE to the access and for sure the transport. The CPEs, for instance, we have disaggregated with hardware and software from different vendors. Telefónica is controlling the software, so we have differential functionality that we offer to our customers due to this. In access, Telefónica has been very vocal around Open RAN. We are pushing for Open RAN, and we share many of the views that has been shared today. And even in fixed access, we are working and testing and soon deploying disaggregated OLTs in our fixed access network. So Telefónica pushing about disaggregation in all the network, but also we are doing that in a holistic way. We are pushing for softwareized and cloudified network. What do I mean by this? Well, this is taking the advantage of the agility and operational advantages of the software and the way of working in the cloud for the network node element. This is more relevant, in my opinion, than just pure disaggregation, but disaggregation helps a lot in this. We are doing, for instance, CI/CD/CT in the core element, but our dream would be to have the automatic testing and deploying of configuration and software releases as well for any other network element. This will be great for us. This will represent a clear advantage from operational point of view. For talking about another dream, we would like to have in-service software upgrade. So the idea of changing the software of a network element without taking the node from the service. So forget about maintenance window. This is a dream today. We cannot do that. We cannot do that even in core network, but the idea in the long term is to be able to have these kind of capabilities as these two examples that I put. But let's not talk about dreams. Let's talk about experiences and real plan we have. What we are doing in optical transport. So in optical transport, we are doing partial optical disaggregation. We are not pushing yet for complete disaggregation. We are not embracing yet Open ROADM because the balance between complexity and benefit, it is not the right one for us today. But we are pushing a lot the partial optical disaggregation. This is using one transponder from a vendor different as the vendor of the OLS. This is the typical alien lambda we have been using sometime in the past. The difference today is that we can do that massively. So we have the right element for managing the third-party transponder in an effective way. The idea of having the SDN controller with a standardized northbound interface with a standardized TAPI gives us the possibility of managing the third-party transponder in a very efficient way and effective way. With this, we want to do this disaggregation massive. Why? Or what is the rationale? So we have been already using this, for instance, in the problem we have had with delivery, the disruption in the delivery chain. Sometimes the vendor of the OLS is not able to provide you with a transponder, and we are using third-party transponder, and we have solved some of the problem of delivery chain with this. We think as well in high-risk vendor. If due to geopolitical reason we have a problem with the supply of a certain vendor, we can provide service with a third-party transponder. And another clear reason is the increase in the vendor ecosystem. We will have a richer ecosystem, so we will have more competitiveness and lower TCO. We are using SDN controller, and TAPI is critical. We are working a lot with many other operators in MAST. There is the group that is certifying the SDN controller interfaces and use cases with a use cases philosophy, not only for TAPI, not only for optical, but also for microwave and also IP. And we see this key, not only for this disaggregation, but in general. We want to do that massive, this disaggregation. For instance, we plan to issue RFQs separated for OLS and transponder for optical network in Telefónica from 2024 onwards. This means that at the limit, we may use third-party transponder always on top of OLS from another vendor. Another opportunity we see is the IP optical integration. That is, implementing pluggables, coherent pluggables for feeding directly from this pluggable inserted in the IP router the OLS. From topology point of view, this is a clear efficiency. We are saving nodes, and we think that, especially for the backhaul, this topology will be adopted massively. Maybe what we need is having the right interfaces. Today, we are working with 400 gig, and for backhaul application, maybe 100 gig will be needed. So as you see, many applications and plan for doing this massively. We are already doing this massively, but even to a further extent. So this is optical. What we are doing in disaggregation, in IP disaggregation. So we have been working with peering and transit. We are not implementing disaggregation in peering and transit yet, but we have tested and we have piloted, and we see that the options for disaggregation in peering and transit are competitive from technical and economical point of view. What we are doing already in operation is cell-side gateway, what we call internally HL5. We have in a couple of operations already the cell-side gateway disaggregated in a limited extent, but already using in our operation network. And this is a good experience from a pure technical point of view, meaning functionality, but also operational point of view. We are doing very well with this disaggregated cell-side gateway, and we plan to do that further. But one thing that I think will be the first time in the world that, at least to my knowledge, that will be done, it is that in one of our operations in Telefónica, Germany, we are going to change the vendor over the air. So we are keeping the hardware. The hardware in this case is edge-core hardware. And we are changing the software of the previous vendor and implementing a new vendor over the air without going to the site. This is the clear example of the benefit of disaggregation. This is how it should be, so changing the vendor even without visiting the site. So the plan is, in the next month, we will do the swap of more than 1,000 cell-side gateway in Germany over the air. The new software vendor is Atran, and as I said, the hardware vendor is EdgeCore, and we will be doing that. Well, we have been doing already FOA, I mean first office application, and this is working properly. With this, we have not to go to the site. We are keeping the hardware and clear benefit from an economical point of view and from TCO. As I said, I think this is the first time in the world that somebody is changing the router vendor over the air without even visiting the site. Well, this is what I would like to share with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Cayetano.
My pleasure. Thank you.
What an amazing progress in Open RAN, OPT, that we've seen here on stage today. The next case study will dive in OpenWiFi. And remember the slide that Kristian showed at the beginning of Fyuz? Over 50,000 OpenWiFi access points deployed. So let me introduce Sandeep Kohli from Meta and Udit Mirota, CEO of Spectra. And let's dive in, gentlemen, into OpenWiFi case study. Let's welcome them.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. So let's begin with a quick intro about OpenWiFi. So OpenWiFi is a collaborative ecosystem of open and disaggregated Wi-Fi solutions, which helps in accelerating and delivering efficient, carrier-grade enterprise solutions. It brings several advantages alongside. 1, lower barriers to entry. 2, accelerated innovation, which takes care of addressing specific use cases. And 3 is a diversified hardware and software vendors coming in together to build a solution. So with that, we will start off with this fireside chat with Udit on how, as a managed service provider, they have gone into large-scale adoption. Udit, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Sandeep.
So Udit, why don't you share with the audience about you being a managed services provider, and how important is Wi-Fi in your day-to-day business operations and the verticals?
Thank you, Sandeep. So Sham Spectra, we are part of Sham Telecom Group based out of India. We are a managed service provider where we cater to over 10,000 businesses across hundreds of cities in the country today. And as part of our managed services portfolio, managed Wi-Fi is a very important part of our managed services portfolio. Our journey with Open Wi-Fi started a couple of years ago when actually started during the pandemic, when we started having issues with our supply chain, with our traditional vendors. But what we've come to realize over a period of time is that while our journey with Open Wi-Fi started due to the problems that we were facing, we've come to realize the strength of the ecosystem and the opportunity that the platform and the technology and the ecosystem provides for a managed services provider such as ourselves, in terms of the diversity of suppliers, the diversity of functionality that we can get. And because Wi-Fi has started to play such a critical and crucial role in our own journey as an organization, it also gives us an opportunity to, if I may say, influence or provide input into the overall development of the ecosystem, which gives us far more comfort than just working with traditional vendors.
All right, so thanks for that. So, which brings me to the next question. You've been involved since the very early days of Open Wi-Fi, ever since the project group got founded. So, what is the real importance of Open Wi-Fi in your networks, and why do you continue to stay invested in this?
So, we've been, earlier on, we started getting involved just from getting to know what's going on. But we were hit hard during the pandemic because of supply chain issues. And that's when we decided to sort of go all in into Open Wi-Fi or with Open Wi-Fi as a alternative solution for enterprise services. And while our journey started with a problem at hand, it's become more of a journey where we see a lot of opportunity in terms of being able to influence the ecosystem, being able to diversify our supply chain, being able to work with vendors for use case specific solutions, which we would never be able to do actually with traditional vendors. And those are some of the reasons, rather some of the key reasons why we continue to invest in Open Wi-Fi as well. This is not to say that the system is at par with everybody else or with traditional vendors or anything like that. It has its challenges which we face every day. But the key realization that we have is that the system, the ecosystem, and the platform, software, technology, etc., is at a stage where it is good enough to be deployed at scale. And obviously, the ecosystem is strong enough where we believe that it will continue to become better and better every day. And that's the reason why we continue to stay invested in it, and we plan to continue to invest further.
So, Udit, from a year-on-year deployment size, and if we particularly talk about, since second half of last year, Spectra pushed the accelerator in terms of doing large-scale adoption. So how much of this adoption is fulfilled by Open Wi-Fi in your networks?
I would say on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, the number of new access points that we've been deploying, Open Wi-Fi has been taking up as much as 80 to 90% as the overall inventory that gets deployed now. And as an overall percentage of our access points deployed, I would say it'll already be close to 20%. Since, we've been deploying access points way before Open Wi-Fi came. So those are the numbers that we're looking at. It's a substantial percentage of our investment that's going into Open Wi-Fi today.
All right. So shifting gears a little bit towards understanding the market that you operate in. So talking about India, and we are going to go deep into the Built in India breakout session with this, again with you and others. So India primarily is one of the largest or the largest demand side country, excluding China. And historically has been dominated by, as you rightly put, traditional Wi-Fi vendors or solutions from the rest of the world. But today, if you look at the ecosystem, it is a very rich ecosystem of, call it, technology providers, OEMs, ODMs, SIs, and a lot of push from the government to promote indigenous technology, both in India as the rest of the world. So what, according to you, are the strengths of this Built in India ecosystem that you adopted? And where do you see the evolution going forward with this?
So one of the key advantages that we saw, another reason why we continue to stay invested in OpenWiFi actually, is with the whole built-in India or disaggregated networks. This has OpenWiFi has enabled a lot of vendors in India to provide, to come into the open, to enter the Wi-Fi space. And this has also enabled us, or rather made it much easier for us to manage supply chains. It's much easier to talk to somebody who's next door versus who's 2 continents away or something like that. So that's how our life has become easier. Also, from a built-in India perspective, I think with OpenWiFi, it has provided an opportunity for Indian vendors to attain credibility very fast as compared to what it would have taken them in terms of time to attain credibility on a global stage. And that's a big advantage that we've seen in India. It has also enabled us, service providers such as ourselves, to invest in the effort, because now we are not buying a cheaper solution, but we are buying a far more cost-effective solution, which is rapidly becoming at par with what the traditional vendors have been offering, right? And as the maturity continues, or as the advancement continues, it's also providing us opportunity to work with domestic vendors and design hardware and solutions which are use case specific, right? Which we wouldn't be able to do if our vendors weren't domestically, located.
So that brings us to our, to the conclusion of this panel. But as a follow-up to our next panel, which is about the Built in India breakout session, where we are going to go deeper into understanding the challenges, but more so covering OpenWiFi as a case study for emerging markets, particularly based out of the challenges that come out of these markets. So we are going to talk to you. We are going to have TIP and Wireless Broadband Alliance as well. But that's where we are really going to go deep about this as an emerging market. Any thoughts or comments on that as we part?
So the only thought that comes to my mind, Sandeep, is that while OpenWiFi may have started as a solution for emerging markets, but I would like to say that today it's pretty much a solution for the global markets, right? It's not just limited to emerging markets or anything like that today.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time, and thanks, Udit. Thanks for coming in and taking out the time. Looking forward to our next breakout.
Thank you very much,
Thank
gentlemen.
you,
This has been a very
Thank you.
insightful session. We have 3 more panels to go. The next one will be about the power of the community. Then we'll dive into challenges that we need to address with Open RAN. And then we'll close off with the panel around AI. If you enjoyed the sessions, there is more breakouts that you can find on the app: Open Transport, Open Wi-Fi, AI, and so on. Also, please visit our exhibitors and sponsors on the 3rd floor, because without them, this event wouldn't have been possible. And the next reminder is use hashtag Fyuz23 to post pictures, takeaways, tag tip, tag me, and let's continue this conversation, how we can move open and disaggregated industry forward. Now, let me invite on stage my good friend Steliana Balova, Principal Analyst at Tyrrell Research. And let's dive in the power of the community in developing, testing, validating, and deploying open and disaggregated solutions. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Steliana Balova. Happy to be here again at this year of Fyuz. And I'll be facilitating the next discussion about the power of community in building open and disaggregated networking solutions. When we speak about community, what comes to mind is to say that it takes a village to raise a child. A lot of work has been done at TIP to raise that child, the open and disaggregated networking products. And we are at the stage where we want to see that child go to work, or in other words, those open and disaggregated solutions to achieve a commercial success. This panel will tap into the vast knowledge and experience of our speakers to gain some insights, some ideas, some learnings of what can be achieved as a community in bringing products to market. So it's my great pleasure to invite on stage Atusa Hafeti, Director of Innovation in Radio and Environment Orange. Eva Rossi, Head of Transport Products at Vodafone. Yes, please. Hello, Eva. Whatever. Kevin Hawley, Technology Standards and Ecosystem Director at BT. Hello, Kevin. Pleasure to have you. David Debrecht, VP Wireless Solutions at Cable Labs. David. Hello, David. Welcome. And Juan Carlos Garcia, SVP Technology, Innovation and Ecosystem at Telefónica. Thank you, our esteemed speakers. It's a great pleasure to have you here and hear from your experience and knowledge about the power of community. I'll ask each one of you a question kind of related to your experience and area of work, and then we'll tap into some insights regarding TIP members and what can be achieved. So I'd like first to start with Kevin, who has a vast experience in different standard bodies, in different standard organizations like 3GPP, ETSI, and my question to Kevin is a little bit sensitive in regarding to competition, because you have been in these organizations when companies, people come together to achieve success together, but at the same time, there's this aspect of competition. So how is this tackled? How is the best way to handle the fact that the companies will compete at the same market?
Okay, thank you. So first I want to wind the clock back a bit. When I started my career, 1G was just taking off, so that tells you how long I've been around. Can you imagine moving around different countries without a mobile phone? In 1G, we had different technologies in different places, and coming from Europe, I'm very familiar with the different systems that we had for 1G in Europe. They were all different, and you couldn't go from one country to the neighboring country, even inside the EU, using the same mobile phone. But it was a great platform to start with. It was only when we started to use the power of community and come together to develop the GSM system, which worked throughout Europe, that really enabled the scale that allowed everybody to have the handset in their pocket, the smartphones that we know today. And even in those days, there was some competition. I think a lot of countries had a single incumbent operator, but certainly in the UK, we had Vodafone and Cellnet were operating 1G in a competitive way. But there was this understanding that you needed scale. And I think that's the big thing about collaborating as competitors. You need to do things where you need scale. So there are some things, of course, you want to compete on. You want to have your own private capabilities that you want to deploy yourself. But of course, you can't scale those. So it's where you need the scale that you really need to come together and talk. There is also a bit of a timing aspect. So sometimes an idea is not of its time, and people want to compete on something, but then later on, it becomes more interesting for a standardization capability. And I want to cite something that I personally experienced when I was chairing the first group that was working on 3G terminals. You heard from him earlier, our good friend Abeta-san from DOCOMO. DOCOMO in 1G and in the first 2G systems were wanting to have their own connector for the handset. And they brought this concept into 3GPP. And 3GPP looked at it and said, well, we're not quite used to having one single connector for all the different handsets. And a lot of the handset vendors said, well, we're not sure what the right form factor is. We have lots of different potential form factors, and if we have to have the same connector, that's going to restrict us on form factor. So in the end, that wasn't possible. But if you look at what's happened more recently, we have a more consistent form factor, at least for smartphones, and that leads us to being able to say, well, we need a standard, a common standard, that works across competitors at scale that we can use, and that's how the USB-C is now pretty much universal.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the story. I'm hopeful they'll bring some ideas to also team members of how to approach the issues that they see in working collaboration in TIPS community. So next, let's move to David. You're working at Cable Labs, and the cable community, cable industry, has already utilized the community approach to achieve standardization, for example, for DOCSIS. So it's a community approach that has achieved success in the cable companies, the cable industry. So can you please share some of your experience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. First of all, thank you very much for allowing me to come and talk about the cable industry and how we treat some of these same topics. Obviously, the cable industry, the cable technology is different, but it's not easier, it's not harder, it's roughly the same, roughly equivalent to the mobile industry. I came from the mobile side of the business and spent most of my career working in the mobile system all the way back to the 2G days. So I came on after the 1G days, but yeah, the real difference in the cable industry is all about community. There isn't a competition on technology. It's very, very standardized, it's specified, and we don't work on technology, we work on the performance, the features, the business aspects of it. So there's really two communities that I want to mention. The first is the vendor community. The vendor community is very close-knit, they work together, they're focused on that standard, the specification, interoperability, all working together. I don't know the exact number, but it's in double-digit numbers, the number of interoperability events that we actually host at Cable Labs to bring all the vendors together to work together to figure out how it works so that the operator doesn't have to do that individually. It's actually done for them so that the operator can expect a certain level of interoperability once it gets to their networks, it gets to their labs. The second community is actually the operator community or member community, and they're focused on what the requirements are. This is what I want from my vendors. This is what I want from the technology, driving those things. And then actually we have a community board of operators that actually sit and decide when vendors can be said, yes, you are compatible. Yes, you do pass all the testing, all the compatibility, et cetera, et cetera. So those are really the two communities that we have in the industry. The third aspect that I would add real quick is all about making sure that you have an independent lab doing this work, and that's what Cable Labs does. Having a vendor-neutral, having an operator-neutral lab that people can come into, work together, and not compete on the technology, as Kevin was saying, but compete on the business aspects really is important and is key to the community in the cable industry.
Thank you. I think you covered a very important aspect of vendors to work together so that there is no repetition of effort and everybody is investing their time wisely to spend on testing and validating and building the certification process together. At TIP, we have seen the operators through all these years, especially here in Europe, work together in aligning their requirements. For example, for Open RAN, we have seen Vodafone, Telefónica working together to come facilitate the technology as Open RAN. So my next question is for Juan Carlos. Is such an approach of a vendor cooperation in terms of certification of products be possible to be driven by TIP?
Yes, of course. So that's a great question, and of course, setting requirements, specifications, and even integration and testing effort is very, very relevant for the community and to make successful the development of open and disaggregated solutions. TIP is providing an environment for such a thing, and covers probably all the different elements in which operators and partners and vendors need to work together. No? Starting, as you said, from the definition of requirements and priorities, okay, that is very relevant. So standards are not enough. So standards are a relevant piece, of course, but the standards in general are very wide. So operators need to somehow limit, what is the part of the standard that they require the providers to deliver in a first instance, in the first products. And this is giving confidence to the technology providers of such components because they can see where the market potential exists. Okay? And this is only as a result of operators talking to each other and agreeing on common requirements. The second part is the RFIs and the experience with the technology. That is helping in gaining further experience on the open systems, on the components, but also in the end-to-end systems. And this is also an important part that is necessary to share in community. Okay, this is an effort that not all operators can do, and as a community, operators can, and vendors and partners can progress further, no? Especially in understanding how this technology performs, how this technology is efficient and can be operated and managed. Okay, and this is important, the RFIs and the trials on this case. There is also other important practice in communities like TIP, like is the development of use cases, and make a use case based approach for developing technology. This is also giving operators the confidence that products are bringing with features that may cover the challenges they have, or the most important challenges they have. No? And this is, for instance, an example of the work that is done, or the approach that is taken in groups like MUST, where operators, together with vendors, are defining use cases for the SDN controllers, okay, with a lot of success, I would say, and very close now to get into commercialization. We have then the next step, that is, of course, where there is a higher effort in generating this open and disaggregated solution, that is in the integration and testing of the end-to-end systems. No? This is something where TIP is putting a lot of effort now, defining a test and certification scheme, and creating a network of labs worldwide that can certify products And this way provide operators with the confidence to get into RFQ or procurement processes to plan for the massive deployments. And all this is important, no? But there is probably much more collaboration needed, and in this case, in developing the tools that are necessary to manage all these complex systems. I think that we are now, generating probably an architecture that is more complex to manage, sometimes very often working on cloud, very often very disaggregated, so based on multiple components, and this requires additional controlling and orchestration mechanisms that I think the industry needs to work together to develop. No? And well, this is a bit the view of all the collaboration that communities like TIP is providing, intending to go from the conceptual phase in which we define requirements and define what we need, what are our challenges, to the final stage, the production phase, in which we would like to start deploying massively in our networks the solutions that we develop. Yeah.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. I think you're bringing a very valuable point of the value of community, because we're discussing a very complex technology at hand, and we're trying to make a big change of how things have been done. So it's a way to leverage the shared knowledge and be supported, right? Because if there are any issues, you have a platform of communication, open communication also, to achieve things. So next question to Eva Rossi. You're involved at TIP's Open Optical Packet Transport Project Group. Can you share some of the things that have been done in your group and how you have leveraged this community approach to get things done?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question and for inviting me here today to speak to this panel. First of all, I would like to say that the OOPT is a wide group because we deal with all the transport technology, optical, IP, micro, SDN, so there are several sub-projects. And through the execution of these different sub-projects, there might be some differences, but I would like to talk about the commonalities that we have in the different groups, subgroups. The first one is definitely that the TIP is a stimulating environment in which the operator can share new ideas, discuss about common needs, common challenges. And this strongly facilitates the creation of new projects. They may come as a proposal from a single operator, from more operators, and then they are brought into the OOPT community. And here they find more adherence from the operator or from the vendors which are involved, and we start a new project. The second important thing that I would like to mention is that there is a pragmatic approach. We are really focused on solutions to be deployed in the operators or driven by use cases that are the fundamental one that we need to implement in our network. The third point is the operator needs, and how we translate into requirement, common requirement, and this is a jointly effort across all the operators. And for me, this is really an important step because through the collaboration, obviously, all the operator benefits, but also the industry, because we set a clear direction which is based on the operator's needs. Then we release this common requirement through the industry or through RFI processes or through documents. And we start to work very closely with the vendors that collaborate. Last but not least, there is the test and validation process in which we obviously, the community of the operators, validate and test the solution that the industry is proposing. So these are the four big commonalities across all the process for all these sub-projects. I would like anyhow to bring two examples which for me are very successful. One of these is the disaggregated cell site gateway. You have seen some impressive number this morning in terms of deployment. We started from an idea. It was an idea We worked very collaboratively across the operator, and we have been able to demonstrate that the disaggregation in transport is a reality. And you have seen the number this morning of how many deployments there are across the operator. Personally, I was involved, and it was for me really a fantastic journey of collaboration. The second one that I would like to mention is MAST, where the operators are working together to accelerate the adoption of an open, a multi-vendor approach for the SDN for transport based on standard. Also here, the TIP community has been very productive in this project. We have been issuing more than 15 documents with requirement white papers to give a clear direction on where the operators, which are the use cases that are fundamental for the operator to implement. We have been engaging with the standards. We have been, we started in 6 and operators, now we are 9, sorry. And we are now in the phase of the test and validation process. So I could mention another project, but I think that I can invite eventually the audience to go to the breakout session this afternoon to see where we are.
Thank you, Eva. I'm sure people will be interested about the details of what the projects were achieved. And I do hear you mention a process that it is from idea to the end point of certification. It takes a process so that community efforts are focused on an end goal, right, end result. And Atusa, can you please tell us at your involvement in the Open Run project group at TIP, can you please share some of your experience, how things are done at your group?
Yes, sure. Thank you for the question. So actually, there are several key aspects in our work in the community that are contributing to the actually progress and commercial readiness of Open RAN. So one of the most important aspects is the definition of joint requirements between operators. What would be the exact scenario and the solution that will be deployed by operators in which time frame. So we got some input from European operators in the context of Open RAN MOU, and then this was a baseline to get some further feedback from operator ecosystem that were active in the community. Then we tried to build a kind of roadmap based on these requirements and also vendors' feedback in the community. And then we went through definition of some joint requirements for testing based on all of the defined blueprints. And most importantly, we went through kind of joint efforts for testing through TIP community labs and with sharing of all of the test results. And actually, this is very important because it's the main objective was to leverage on a set of testing that has been done in one lab and let operators then to run only a few additional tests which were specific to their configuration. So the objective was actually taking this main principle that has been discussed this morning as well in mind to test once and then try to deploy many times. Then the ambition then as next step would be to evolve from our current trend of blueprint definition and test and integration towards a more evolved, let's say, a system certification process for Open RAN with a kind of continuous cycle to give the ecosystem a kind of confidence that this take into account in all of the operators' requirements for actual deployments. And also to be able to consider them in the procurement process from the operators.
Thank you, Tusa. Now a big discussion about Open RAN coming up in the afternoon, so people will be looking forward to that. So we're kind of approaching our time for this discussion. And what I'd like to ask you to do is just, in few words, in a couple, 3 words, give your main insight, main takeaway for the members of TIP, so that they can write down the approach, right? What's best to do in the community, how to best utilize the power of the community. So just in few words, can you maybe start with Juan Carlos?
Well, I think the question is that, of course, open and distributed solutions require a strong effort for telecom operators in terms of development, integration, testing, and the working community is extremely relevant, to alleviate part of this effort. Again, from the moment in which you define or specify a solution, you test it, you set priorities and requirements, and finally integrate and certificate the final system. In all this, there is a strong coordination required, and communities, like TIP, probably are the right vehicle, to be able to move these solutions forward, and again, save effort and gain time for the community.
Thank you. Yeah, so for me, the key is scale. We need to come together as a community to build scale. While we have lots of different point solutions, it becomes very difficult for the industry to coalesce. So I think the key thing for the TIP community is to identify those things where we need the scale and to define the testing so that we can have products that are confirmed as being conformant to those specifications. And then also leaving room to innovate on top so people can differentiate. So competitors can come together to develop common solutions which scale, but also leave room to differentiate on top.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the community. We've been a member of TIP and the TIP Community Lab for many years, OpenWiFi, now Open RAN. And actually, it's just the bringing together. The Cable Labs was the location where we hosted the 5G Challenge that was sponsored by NTIA over in the US. And we were able to show in a very short period of time vendor pairings, cold vendors coming in, showing compliance on certain interfaces. We brought in 10 different vendors into the lab who have never integrated before and actually brought them together all the way to the point that 2 different teams showed mobility and high performance in the lab within about a 5-week period, which is just tremendous compared to the typical integration time of most operators. So it can be done, we just have to do it together.
For me, I will summarize in very few words. TIP really a great environment of collaboration where we have built a community and where we are able to bring to life ideas. And then operators' needs, common requirement.
Thank you.
I would say that one of the strength points of our community is the fact that we have this ability to foster the cross-industry initiatives from both operators and manufacturers to gather information regarding requirements and then provide roadmaps and define the deployment scenarios. So it comes with a global reach, which is very important worldwide, and at the same time, as next step, what is important to take care is the fact that we see that there are some other initiatives beyond TIP in standardization, for example, in ORAN Alliance side on the testing activities, and also some other regional initiatives on the test and integration. And what is important then is to be well coordinated with all of these between all of these different initiatives. To align on releases, to align on test, let's say, testing requirements, and in order, and all of this could contribute to avoid any type of fragmentation in the ecosystem.
Thank you very much, everyone, and this leads us to the end of our discussion. And I personally think that this is a place here at Fyuz in Madrid that everybody will feel the power of community that TIP has built. So thank you very much for your participation. Please join me at thanking our speakers.
Thank you very much. What a great panel.
Thank you so much.
It does take a village, because this journey started 7-8 years ago, and look at it now.
Thank you. Yes.
So, Steliana, before you leave, thank you very much, panelists. Sit down and let's have a little chat. So, I've been surveying people backstage because we're approaching the end. We only have 2 more panels to go. What are your biggest takeaways? And while you're thinking, so the people in the back, all the amazing speakers, they told me 3 takeaways. And if you think this is your takeaway, you can raise your hand. So takeaway number 1, Open RAN is real. I don't see any hands because the lights are. Who thinks that Open RAN is real? Yes, a lot of hands. Is that your takeaway as well?
Yes.
Okay. So the second takeaway, and again, I want to see the hands. So TCO for Open RAN is slowly starting to materialize. That's what Dell Technologies was talking about. Hands? Who's thinking that TCO is materializing? Okay, I see some hands, not as many as for number 1. Is that true? Is that what you're seeing?
I think so, yeah. We're getting there. Better and better.
Okay, so in the research you're doing is showing that savings are starting to roll in with automation.
Yes, and we've done even more research in this regard that we'll share in the afternoon with more ideas of what can be done actually to spend less money and do more actual commercial deployment.
Great, great, great. So there are some breakouts this afternoon on Open RAN where you can see research on how TCO is improving. So takeaway number 3, that's what people told me backstage, and let's see if they were right, that TIP is doing amazing job, not just in Open RAN, but also in Open Optical and Open Wi-Fi. So who thinks that? I don't see any hands. Open Optical, yes, I see a hand, thank you. It's hard to see hands when the lights are shining in your face. So amazing case studies on Open Optical we saw from MTN and Telefónica. So obviously this is a quick 3 takeaways that I got from the panelists backstage. We want to hear your takeaways, so please post them on your social, post on LinkedIn, or reply to Dean Babley's tweets. He's tweeting under #Fyuz23, and please get engaged in those conversations. Anything else for our audience on the takeaways or the trends to watch?
I think we have heard some great examples from our panelists of what has been done. I personally feel that a lot has been done in the Open Optical group at TIP, and it will be fantastic to see products implemented, deployed.
Yes, tested, certified, and deployed.
And
thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure, Eugenia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, and providing our audience with your takeaways.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 more panels to go, and this one is a great one. It's being moderated by Ray Lemastre, editorial director of Telecom TV, and they're going to be discussing what challenges we need to address to scale Open RAN. It's probably one of the best panels of today, very real, with serious takeaways and call to actions to the industry. Welcome, Ray. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Eugenia. So, no pressure then. Did Eugenia just say this was going to be the best session of the day? I think she did. So we're getting back right into Open RAN now and looking at what needs to be done before Open RAN can be accelerated, and some of the key challenges. So I'm Ray Lemaitre, I'm the editorial director at Telecom TV. As you can see, I'm old school, wearing a suit, got a clipboard, but the discussion is going to be anything but old school. There's a great deal of talk about the potential of Open RAN in the industry amongst the operator community, but that interest hasn't yet translated so much into major network investments or commitments from many operators outside Japan and the greenfield deployments in the US and Germany, and of course some exceptions like Vodafone, who showed this morning what they're doing and trying to drive the market. So what is the hold-up? So during this session, we're going to focus on some of the factors that are potentially causing bottlenecks in the Open RAN sector, and getting some suggestions from our speakers about what potentially could be done to ease those bottlenecks and encourage greater investment in Open RAN. So I'm now going to invite our 6 speakers onto the stage, so please do give them a big round of applause. Let's welcome our speakers. Excellent. And so we're just going to do a quick round of intros so you know who everybody is, and we'll go from this end to that end. So if we can start here, name, rank, and number, and what you do in your job.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. I'm glad to be here. My name is Matteo Fiorani. I'm head of our Cloud RAN Distributed Unit application at Ericsson. And
Kevin,
I'm
my man,
mostly
you did good.
responsible for the VU application and also the open interfaces connected to it, open frontal and F1 interface.
Okay, thank you. Munish.
Hi, I'm Munish Chabra, and I'm responsible for Redis's O-RAN software business. And as you know, Redis has been providing O-RAN software right from the 4G and now contributing onto the 5G as well with the multi-architecture, multi-platform software.
Gil.
Hi, I'm Gil Hellman. I'm responsible for the field, basically solution engineering and architecture, from the initial engagement with the customer all the way to the small-scale deployment of O-RAN solutions.
Maria.
Hi, everyone. Maria, I'm a co-founder and CEO of Weaver Labs. We are a startup in the telecoms industry building end-to-end orchestration software. So we've been doing a large number of field trials with all of these new suppliers in the ecosystem.
Okay, Eduardo.
Hello, Eduardo Ramirez, Vice President of Marketing at ARM, responsible for infrastructure marketing, which includes 5G infrastructure.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is John Baker from Mavenir, one of the leading suppliers of Open RAN systems in the marketplace today. I lead Mavenir's Open RAN initiatives. I also sit on the board of the Open RAN Policy Coalition, and then just recently co-chair of the industry engagement group from the O-RAN Alliance.
Okay, thanks everybody. So in this session, we probably will get into some of the technology drivers in Open RAN, but we're trying to broaden this out and not delve into what some of the other sessions are getting into. So I'm going to start off by just mentioning the potential cause of a bottleneck for Open RAN. Go to one of the speakers, ask them for an opening statement, and then let the debate go from there across the panel. So Munish, I'm going to start with you. There's a sense in the industry right now that a lot of the mobile operators are going through a bit of a reset, a business reset, going back to basics. And as a result, they might even become more risk averse in general, and this could be putting the brakes on some Open RAN commitments. Do you see any evidence of that in the market, or do you think that's something that might be manifesting itself at the moment?
Sure, I think this is an interesting question. If you look at it, it's not that operators have stopped deploying it or they are putting brakes or anything like that. I think it has slowed down, but it is also slowed down because they want to watch the success of other operators coming in. As you can see, across the globe, tier 1 operators have started deploying Open RAN solutions. Now, there are the Open RAN dream that started with everything being open. So maybe those deployments are not with everything being open. So there are challenges that industry still needs to solve, and it has already progressed in that direction. And I'll highlight a few of the points here. First and foremost point I would say is the integration across a lot of these different components. As an operator, they don't want to take ownership of all the integration, right? So this has to be solved by the industry, by the vendors coming in together. In fact, communities or forums like TIP and others, where how much standardization can be created, and certification becomes very important to those standardization. Because as an operator, if I have to integrate each and every piece, and all of these components talk on different versions of the specifications, then they're an R&D house, right? They will lose their focus on deployment, they'll do R&D. So this piece definitely we need to solve as industry together. Second part, I would also say on the same lines, is the operations, the manageability aspect of it. When think of it as a solution coming in from a single vendor or legacy solutions, all the solutions or the complete solution, which includes all the components, they're managed through a single interface. Again, the industry needs to come up and create a common interface for all the components. Even within the components, like 7.2 being very, I would say, famous open interface, the implementation of 7.2 by different RU vendors is different. Similarly, the M-plane implementation is also different. So we need to, in a way, create common forums or certification where all of them come together and solve this challenge for the operators.
Okay, I might come back to you on some of that. Does anybody else want to comment?
I would, of course, that risk, if you look at us as a human in general and companies, we fear the unknown, okay? And until we have more knowledge, we are reluctant to move forward. What we're seeing is we're seeing first deployments that are now reaching very large scale. Verizon is an example, and Vodafone that announced, and the data is starting to come out. And as the data comes out and we see that it matches and even better than traditional RAN, this is where we'll start to see more and more operators jumping in. But everyone at the beginning sits on the fence waiting to see the real data, because standards are great, but you can have all the standards, but until someone actually goes and put it to work in real life, and until you have the data, it's very challenging. And the nature of this industry, it takes time to get the data.
Okay. If I can just come back to you, Manish, you made some good points there, but I wonder how much if operators are going back to basics now with their business plans, they might wait another year to see if the industry can collaborate more and come out with some blueprints or easier way to integrate. But then that means they might just mothball a plan for a year. Do you think there's anything going on right now that can make them think, oh, well, actually, this isn't so much of a risk. This is something I can be doing now to actually take advantage and maybe be more competitive in a market? Is that a potential viewpoint? Are you hearing any of that kind of thing from operators?
Yes, in fact, I would say it's not that it is far away. The only thing what it requires is somebody to stand up and say, operators, you guys don't need to worry about it. The solution that is going to come in with multi-vendors is going to have the same, I would say, experience that you will get from legacy solutions. So that's where the need of a body that will bring everybody together at one interface, that's where is important.
Okay. And to be fair, we are starting to hear a little bit more of that as well, and we did this morning. So if we can move on to the next talking point, one of the things about Open RAN, for years, was the talk about greater vendor diversity. This was one of the big promises, especially across the full spectrum of technologies, including alternative RAN supplier options. John, do you think Open RAN has delivered on this promise of delivering greater options in terms of the RAN supplier ecosystem? Because probably some of the operators were waiting to have a plethora of companies to go to with their RFIs, and potentially they might be a little bit disappointed even in 2023.
Yeah, and for those of you that follow me on LinkedIn, I've just recently been publishing what I call the villages of Open RAN, and in there's over 125 vendors across essentially the 3 segments of Open RAN, so radio, CU, DU, and RIC. And there's probably about 20 suppliers in most of the categories, and coming out of that, there's 10 plus end-to-end system suppliers or system integrators that are coming up the pipeline. So absolutely, Open RAN has truly delivered on bringing the new vendors and the investment from the marketplace. I think what you're seeing is that those vendors in there are already sticking to the principles of open interfaces and true interoperability. And I think, with the announcements of Ericsson and Nokia this week, absolutely welcome, to the ecosystem, but we've got to maintain open and interoperable interfaces, and interfaces have got to be certified. Otherwise, we're going to get back into this trap of feature creep that suddenly says this is not open and it's not interoperable, and this is all about certification. And I think it was mentioned this morning that about 15 OTICs now, in that part, as part of the ecosystem, the OTICs and other groups have got us, essentially certify product. Otherwise, again, we got vendor creep and stuff, really taking place. And the vendor ecosystem is growing to the extent that we'll eventually get to plug and play. Now, plug and play is still a long way off, but setting the groundwork of open interfaces, standards that are truly met, and standards will live on, and we'll get new features, and vendors will develop new products. But I think from where we started, from Mavenir's perspective, 6.5 years ago, when people were saying, well, this is never going to happen, to where we are today with networks, such as Sid was saying this morning, 15,000 sites of Open RAN with 15 radios per site, and there's 150,000 radios sitting in that dish network. And that's a true brownfield type complexity. Of all the different vendors that brought that together, I think there was 30 plus vendors that brought that dish network together. So, the vendors are there, the vendors are very willing to get engaged. And, every day somebody's coming to me and saying, please put my name on the list. And, for you guys out there that haven't got your name on the list, just drop me an email, and, we'll grow this ecosystem. But it truly is about, growing the ecosystem. It is a geopolitical ecosystem as well. Let's not ignore that fact that, the geopolitics of, bringing jobs back to local countries is also very important in this process.
Okay. Does anybody else want to come?
Just to add to what John was saying, I think you're now actually seeing that there is choice in the marketplace, right? And that choice spans all the way down from the hardware, from where your compute is running, who's providing the silicon. You've seen a lot of new companies like Qualcomm, Marvell, even NVIDIA now investing in the space, which is great to see. And it spans to the software offerings as well, right? Up and down the stack. And so I think to John's point, I think it just was a bit of having the ecosystem maturity catch up with the diversity that's important, right? Yep. So that these solutions can then be deployed pretty seamlessly into the market.
Yeah, and certainly, we've seen a lot of innovation in the time since we started. I think we've been through nearly 4 generations of Intel platform. Right, and so every time it's been a capacity increase and a speed increase, etc. And somebody commented this morning about, but the R&D dollars are not the same as a single company. When in fact, I would argue completely the opposite. There's 100 times more money being spent in R&D if you take Intel's R&D, ARM's R&D, and add them together. You've got focused R&D at focused solutions, and the current incumbents can never achieve that. And that's why I think the recognition of joining the Open RAN Club is probably the right thing, because saving their R&D dollars as well long term, that's to the benefit of the operator and the subscriber.
So there are quite a lot of vendors out there with Open RAN pitches and products. but yet we're hearing operators saying, yes, we're doing, Telefónica made an announcement with Ericsson last week, Vodafone's made another announcement with Nokia, and I guess some operators might think, well, I thought this was all about working with different vendors. The Huawei thing really pushed things on, and a lot of operators want to replace Huawei, but it's a little bit frustrating for anybody to see the operators saying we're going to do Open RAN now, but we're doing it with the same companies we were working with before, or is everybody good with that? I know you're good with that, obviously, but everybody good with that?
I think the change is happening, and obviously, we would like to see more big wins, but in reality, we're working with Telefónica, we're working with Vodafone, we're working with Deutsche Telekom, we're working with Dish. At the end of the day, there's, and as it was said this morning, it's not a revolution, it's an evolution, and and also in due respect, a lot of the companies that are coming into this space don't necessarily have the scale and the balance sheet, if you like, to do a lot of these very large deployments that the Nokia and Ericssons can do. So there's always going to be a place for the big incumbents and the new entrants, and over time the market will set itself out. But it's probably a 10, 15-year journey that we're all on to really see this marketplace say, the Open RAN has truly achieved its end goal.
Okay.
Maybe if I can add to that, I think as incumbent, of course, for us, what we can bring into this ecosystem is the scale, and I think we can help the ecosystem to grow. So we come with a relatively large install base, and we well-known building practices, and we can bring that as part of the ecosystem to help it to grow. And of course, for us, it's a challenge, but also it's an opportunity. So we see also this as an opportunity to enter new market segment where we were not present before. So being part of the ecosystem gives new challenges, but also new opportunities also for an incumbent. So that's why I think this announcement that you have seen recently, even if they involve incumbent, they also involve a larger ecosystem and help to move the ecosystem of Open RAN forward.
Okay. So as well as in the sort of the RAN part of Open RAN, there was also a promise that Open RAN would be the catalyst for lots of new application developers to come in and be innovative and give operators capabilities that they otherwise would never have had access to. But are we seeing any of that? Has that really happened? So Maria, if I can come to you, are we seeing much evidence of specialist companies coming in with software applications or particular apps maybe to run on the RAN intelligent controller, or is it a bit too early for that yet?
I mean, the reality is that as much as we would love to, we don't have a thriving developer community around Open RAN. Open RAN came with the promise of creating an open software platform for innovation based on open architectures. And the reality is that we are not there yet. We don't have the readiness on the interfaces. The RAN intelligent controller is very, very nascent still. And we haven't seen the developer community coming into the telecoms ecosystem and creating solutions out of that. Open RAN came with a promise that service differentiation was going to be given by this combination of software components in the network. And we haven't seen that happening from the vendor community, enabling that to actually happen. At Weaver Labs, we started working in Open RAN very early in 2021. And 2 years later, we are still working on very basic connectivity issues, such as hardware-software compatibility, or even integration problems. And obviously, now even having the conversation is the E2 interface ready or not? So the idea of creating XR apps through an SDK is still very far from reality right now. And although I do applaud, Ericsson coming into the ecosystem and the big operators doing very, very large-scale trials, I do think that we are now at the risk of Open RAN becoming just another deployment model and not being an actual catalyzer of innovation and actually opening up the telecoms industry to the developer community, because we are getting too fixated into this single enclosed environment, because obviously the challenge is huge, and I do agree with that. We need to deliver connectivity to millions of subscribers in the planet, but we also need to take risks, and we do not see many small players coming in because the barriers to entry are too high. And you mentioned the balance sheet problem. If I have to come and sell to a Vodafone or any big operator, probably my board of directors won't be very happy because of the burn rate that entails. So if you ask me why, I would say culture is the very first problem that we face in the industry. Investment is the other one. We don't get outward investment from venture capitalists betting on the industry, maybe because of cultural diversity not being there yet. But also I think the industry, big industry players need to make a bet in this if we actually want to change things.
Okay. And maybe if a lot of companies came forward and said, we've got an AI-enabled app for Open RAN, maybe the investors would come running to their door now, because that seems to be the big attraction. But that's been part of the pitch for ages, hasn't it? Automation enabled by AI, but that hasn't really, Open RAN hasn't really got caught up in the great big AI hype cycle, is it?
Well, I think cloud readiness is one of the biggest issues, because obviously for AI to be adopted, you need to have data acquisition, sanitization, and management through advanced software architectures, which we obviously don't have because of the underlying cloud infrastructure not being there yet. And the other thing that I am seeing right now is the trend is that the XR apps are actually being delivered by the vendors themselves, not actually opening up the SDKs. So then as an end-to-end orchestration platform, we end up integrating to a number of element managers instead of actually having open interfaces to do so. So that's actually going to delay a lot more this actually, you know, the AI and the automation that was promised. Okay,
yeah, no, that does seem like a bottleneck on that side of the fence for sure. Okay, you know, we talked earlier on about operators becoming a little bit more risk-averse currently, but we also heard this morning as well, Rob Sony from AT&T made the point that, you know, the operators are at very different stages in their 5G journeys for lots of different reasons, I'm sure that we all know about. So existing 5G rollout plans and questions around 5G returns on investments as well are really high up the conversation stacks at the operators right now. And that might be making them nervous about moving first with disruptive alternatives such as Open RAN. Eduardo, is the mobile operator sector a bit too locked into its 5G plans at the moment to even create much room for Open RAN to become part of it in brownfield, of course?
Yeah, I think part of what's important about a conference like this, right, is to be able to provide clarity, right, in areas where there isn't none, and clarity around the TCO value proposition, right, of ORAN, clarity around maturity of the solutions, and just to make sure that there's actually going to be operational simplicity in deploying them. I think that's more important than where people are in their state of their 5G journey. And I think it was great to see talks like Abeta from NTT actually showing data, right, of what they've been able to achieve, showing things like power efficiency with benefits of 50% power improvement. That's really an important part for us at ARM that we're trying to advocate, right, with hardware diversity. The ecosystem is ready. One of the things I love about this stage is I've been working with almost most people here on this panel just to make sure that hardware and software code development actually exist, so that optimization work and getting all the bugs out of the systems are actually done before an operator even sees a POC. And so I think these things are part of what's going to be important, right, for people to kind of get over the skepticism because of the lack of proof points or data that they don't have today.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point. I mean, obviously there's actually quite a lot of Open RAN activity in Japan in general, not just at DOCOMO, and obviously Vodafone is pushing things ahead, and Deutsche Telekom is making moves as well in Europe. But one of the other challenges already mentioned a few times by the panel is, the cloud readiness of the mobile operator community. And there's a sense still, in fact, Telecom TV did a little survey recently about where operators are in their cloud native strategies, and there's quite a few still to even begin going down that road. So are operators operationally ready to manage Open RAN architectures in the way that's going to deliver the greatest positive outcomes? Are cloud native strategies at operators really off the ground? Gil, if I can come to you on this, because obviously you need certain things to happen first before you can really take full advantage of what Open RAN offers. So are you seeing cloud native adoption as a bottleneck to that next stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say more cloud architecture. Cloud native, it's a little bit maybe overloaded term, how you define it, especially when you get to the far edge of the network where you have a cell site with maybe 1 or 2 servers, okay? But definitely operating a cloud, operating it at scale. This whole concept, it's very new to the service provider, okay? Especially for the wireless side of the service provider. So I'm not talking the enterprise side, the IT part, and from now I would say 3 years journey, starting with Verizon and now with Vodafone, they are coming along, and I can see they're definitely getting there. Verizon is definitely there, Vodafone as we heard, but it is transformation internally inside the organization. Skill set, how they approach things, how they work with the ecosystem. Traditionally it was one vendor that provide the whole thing, it's box. They know basically pretty much if this light goes on, I need to plug this cable or unplug this cable. Now it's a whole different level. It's a software disaggregation. I need to be able to log into and troubleshoot things, or look actually to be able to identify what happened, understand the data that comes to me, the logs and alarms that are coming to me. What does it mean? Because a lot of them are new stuff that they didn't see before. Okay, this is a transformation on how to operate the network, the whole approach of how to set it up and operate it. Okay. And they're getting there. But like I said before, it's about, I would say the operator has a very big role here in sharing the data. Traditionally, they keep a lot of the data internally because all different business reasons. And then when you don't share the data, you don't know, so it's a lot riskier. So a lot more sitting on the fence and waiting to see. More sharing of the data basically will allow to accelerate things, more sharing of the knowledge.
Okay. Does the panel think that we heard this morning about we need to share more, collaborate more, and there is more collaboration going on, but will the operators share the information and data that the other operators, might be able to benefit from? Is that something that's going to happen in reality? Whether it's through TIP or any other industry body? I mean, what level of information is going to be shared?
Yeah, I think you're seeing the openness in the operator community. The reason that the O-RAN Alliance was formed was because by the operators, and the operators are making this thing happen. And to that extent, I think Sid again, said about being open about challenges in the integration of the network amongst vendors. Now, I know as one of the vendors for Dish, we sat around the table with the 30 other vendors, all sharing the problems. We knew what Samsung's problems were. We knew what, they knew what our problems are. And so that, and that was just a fact of life. The only way that we're all going to work to a common goal is share the problems and try and fix them. And I think the Open RAN community is actually doing that. We will share our interfaces and we will do interoperability testing. Again, we've interoperated with 14 plus radio vendors and proven that the specs are correct and the specs are right. Some of the comments you've heard on the front haul specs. You know, that's the evolution of the front haul. It's not about where the front haul, the problems with the front haul today is. You know, if, so I think the willingness is there, that both at the technology level and at the operational level, to share information amongst the community.
Okay.
I think the industry's been very successful at collaborating around standards, right? And I think now we're seeing that move to collaborating around best concepts, best practices, right, in terms of deployment of some of the O-RAN solutions. And I think there's more to go. I think Gil was right in some of that. Some of the data that will help us tune the performance or the efficiency of the systems, right, is some of the data that the operators will be able to have and provide. Everything from how to benchmark the hardware, how to optimize the software, how to make sure that deployment can happen in a short period of time. I think that level of data is going to be important, right, for all of us here on stage to be able to continue to provide better and better solutions.
Yep. Okay. And yes, you mentioned the specifications there, and that's been mentioned in quite a few of the sessions this morning as well. But is there any sense that the Open RAN sector is still being perhaps held up by a lack of some of the key industry specifications, or have we gone beyond that point? Matteo, if I can come to you on this one.
I think that the industry had made a tremendous progress in solidifying the open specifications in different standardization bodies. Maybe most and foremost, in the past few years, we have seen the O-RAN Alliance maturing a lot as a standardization body, as becoming probably the most important standardization bodies together with 3GPP in releasing open specification for building open networks. There are a few success stories that our O-RAN Alliance has achieved. Like for us, for example, there has been a big achievement earlier this year in the agreement in the O-RAN Alliance to define a new open frontal specification that is optimized for massive MIMO. But it's not only. For example, we have seen that O-RAN Alliance has decided to create a new work group specific for security. This is the work group 11, which we think is extremely important, because now this work group will, and already started, to make sure that all the specification coming out of the O-RAN Alliance will be secure to industry best practices and best standards. Another example I can make is, for example, in the O2 interface for infrastructure management, where there has been a good alignment and initial good alignment with IT specification and de facto standards like Kubernetes APIs, which I think is very important, so that we don't create fragmentation between the specification in the O-RAN Alliance that are more telco heavy versus the IT interfaces for cloud. So we have seen tremendous progress, and of course there is always room to improve. So there are improvements. I think that Maria has made a good point about the SDK and the northbound, for example, of the SMO, to simplify the integration of, for example, our apps on top of a non-real-time RIG platform. I think that there are one interfaces there. Maybe we have to do more work to make it good and solid and have the industry to take it and make it really multi-vendor. We also see that it's important that we go through other standardization bodies, for example, through timely delivery of the O-RAN specification to ETSI Pass, so that we can sort out any possible IPR concerns on the O-RAN specification and large-scale O-RAN deployments. I think these things are already in place, but they can, of course, be improved. But overall, I would say tremendous progress, and I would say that the specifications themselves are not really a hinder for large-scale Open RAN deployment.
Okay. Do we have agreement across the panel that the specifications are ready to rock?
So I would say, I would like to add here, I think very good points there. See, specifications, again, it's a journey. You create a specification based on what you would believe would happen. But when you go into deployments, the learnings come into the next levels of specifications, right? So all that stuff is happening. So we talked about the challenges on O2 and O1 and E2 being slower, because it's coming into deployment now. So we are going to learn, the specifications will evolve with that. I think most important, we all need to make sure that the industry is keeping pace with also accepting those specifications and implementing those, so that everybody is at the same page.
Right. Yeah, I just want to bring in that you know, there seems to be a misunderstanding, if you like, about what's going on with specifications. The overarching specification for Open RAN is with 3GPP on the radio interface, and that's been there for 5-10 years. Right, and that still exists, that still applies to everything we do in the RAN space. What's changing is obviously the interface between the radio and the baseband controller, which has been the proprietary interface in the past, and that's evolving, and we'll expect it to continue to evolve. The first iteration of that spec was actually adopted by ETSI, probably I think it was like almost nearly a year ago, 2 years ago. And so, from that perspective, that specification is solid, it's proven to be interoperable, and operators have deployed it. Now what's going on with the Ericsson enhancement, if you like, on a specific edge case is the ability to put a new interface in there. Now we expect that to happen in all areas. And that's just an ongoing process as you've got in 3GPP with new features coming out in 3GPP. So, specifications are solid, overarching spec is 3GPP, and then the rest goes on from there.
Okay.
I think John has made a good point. We will see the evolution of all the specifications. So as we go forward, I mean, maybe the open frontal is one of the most mature. There are other specifications on the O-RAN Alliance that are reaching the maturing point and will continue to evolve, becoming more and more mature with more and more functionalities. And most likely we'll all have to go through the ETSI pass process. So it's not just the open frontal, but all the open interfaces in the O-RAN Alliance are becoming more mature. They will benefit from going through the ETSI pass process and, as Munish said, being solidified, becoming standardized, adopted by the industry, and really interoperable. That may take still a little time. I think we are on that journey, but it may take a little bit more to get really stable.
Okay.
I just think that there is one thing that I would like to see more, and it's interworking between O-RAN Alliance 3GPP with ETSI, especially the ETSI NFV and the whole MANO community. There is a bit of overlap. Especially around 0102 and this whole O-Cloud concept that obviously at CNFV has been working for a very, very long time on virtual infrastructure management and the whole infrastructure management layer. And it seems sometimes that we are speaking different languages. And it would be great to see the community coming together and finding a demarcation and saying, okay, so this is where we finish and this is where you start. There is a bit of overlap there, and I think it needs a bit more clarity.
Okay, good takeaway. And speaking of takeaways, we will come to some now from our panel, because incredibly the 40 minutes allotted time is nearly up. So we've been talking about bottlenecks. If I can get a comment from each of you, starting with you, Matteo, what specifically needs to happen next in the sector to help accelerate investments, commitments to Open RAN deployments?
Well, maybe I would say that these two things, maybe into consecutive steps. The first is solidifying the interfaces to become not only interfaces that are mature on the paper, but also on the actual interoperability deployments. And the second step is taking the first step together with Tier 1 operators, especially the ones that are more on the front line, to realize large-scale Open RAN deployment. These two steps will be key to enable Open RAN.
Okay. Munish.
So I would say Open RAN is here, is getting deployed. We are all learning with all these deployments, and I'm sure we'll all improve through this. But whatever we learn, we have to look at how do we reduce this pain for next level of deployments to come in, which will come through certifications and standardizations around those levels where we ensure that the same mistake is not repeated in the next level of deployments.
Okay. Go.
I will say more operator commitment, bold moves. It's all about the strategies. Verizon made a strategic decision to go and roll out, so is Vodafone, and they're making it happen. The rest of operators need to do the same thing. And O-RAN is already here, but to get to a large scale and to be a lot more efficient, it's about the commitment and getting it done.
Okay. Maria.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with him as well, like in terms of being bold, taking risks, and more operator commitment in terms of creating an actual open ecosystem.
Okay. Eduardo.
I think we're all excited about the RFI, RFQ cycles that are going to happen in 2024, right? The commitment that some of the key Tier 1 operators are making, I think is going to be a catalyst, right, for the industry. And so we're all, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that we're excited about seeing, the Ericssons and Nokias finally seeing the open lights now to leave it on a note, I just wish they would open up the interfaces that should be open, such as the X2, XN interface, to allow the Open RAN integrators to get on and build proper brownfield networks and totally integrated networks to the best of the operators. So if nothing more, if we're in this open community, let's open up the interfaces that were specified to be open and not use them for commercial advantage.
Okay, well there we have it. Time is up for this session. Thank you very much to the audience for being here. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause for our speakers for this session. Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you very much, Ray, and thank you very much, panelists. Great discussion. So what I heard, the 3 C's: commitment, community, and certification.
And cash, 4 C's.
4 C's and cash. Wonderful. So let me welcome the next panel on stage.
Okay, that's us done.
The next panel is a very exciting one. Today, we're giving you a little taste of innovations around AI, RIC, and so on, that we will be discussing in our breakouts tomorrow on Wednesday. And Wednesday, main stage is going to be all about AI and future innovations. So stick around till day 3. The moderator for this panel is Kaniz Madi. She's not only TIP board member, but she's also an SVP, Technology, Architecture, and Innovation at DT. Kaniz, welcome on stage and take it away. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'm told that I am the last one sitting between you and the lunch, but believe me, this panel is not like any other conventional panels you've been to, and definitely not like any AI for telco panels. Today, we will have a conversation on what a future network might look like, and we will dream a bit. We all have to dream. But then quickly, we will come down to the ground, do a state-of-the-art analysis, and we have a very, very diverse panel that we have brought in place for you. Would like to welcome my panelists. Hello, everyone. Victor, Mariam, and Elad, so glad to be talking to you about the future of AI and telco. But let's first go ahead and do a quick round of intros. Victor, we start with you.
Sure. My name is Victor Mphahlele. I am a technical fellow and CTO of Azure for Operator. This is a new business division that Microsoft created to effectively unify some of the infrastructure pieces between the cloud and the telecom industry.
Hi, I'm Mariam Simsek. I am with Nokia Bell Labs, leading a lab on network architecture and asking ourselves questions about what will come in 2035 and beyond, capturing every aspects from optical switches and routers and devices over different network domains all the way up to the application.
Hello, everyone. Elad Blat, Global Head of BD Telco and Networking for NVIDIA. We're really trying to help telcos on their journey towards AI and how to become AI-driven clouds.
All right, guys. If I were to sketch what a future network might look like, in my dream scenario is the network does not remain a thing that connects things and people, but it becomes a key or essential, I should say, underpinning for the fabrics of our lives. So we go from connecting things to enabling lives. And with that, Mariam, considering your role, if I were to give you a clean slate and all the resources in the world, how would you sketch that scenario?
Well, I will try to be the dreamer here in the panel round and won't put any time horizon into the vision that Kanis has inspired. But if we really look into a little bit of how computers evolved and how the mobile networks in particular evolved over the last couple of decades, what we will see is we had these huge computers, room-sized computers, that approximately in about a decade moved towards personal desktop computers or laptops, and then we approached the era of cloud computing, and nowadays we're talking about serverless and basically disappearing computers. We have compute everywhere through devices still, but imagining about a future that we can access really compute through anything, any surface. Looking into the evolution of the networks, what we see is they were fairly hardware-driven in 3G. In 4G, we have introduced the software-defined components into it. With 5G, we started talking about cloud-based solutions. But what will be the era of 2030 and beyond as a time horizon? Will this be then also a disappearing network? Is a motivational factor for me. If computers disappear, networks should likely also disappear and offer really absolute seamless, ubiquitous experiences. I'm not talking about connectivity here or compute, but if the availability of connectivity and compute is provided seamlessly, then an ideal network of the future for me should be able to grasp and sense the need of individuals through data that is provided by the environment and act upon the individual needs. And that requires AI, pure AI native design, operation, and acting decision.
Very nice, very nice. Invisible machines enabling our lives with AI.
Yes.
Elad, do you buy that?
I think it's beautiful. It's a very optimistic view and very beautiful. I think the problem is that you forgot you're talking about telcos. And I think that, first of all, we need to understand that the time to act is now. Dreams of 2030, 2025, beautiful, and let's have a few more committees to talk about it. That will not work. The time for innovation is now. The time for LLM is now. The time to build is now. So if you don't take this opportunity and make it real now, in 2025, there'll be other players making this a reality, not telcos, and not, at least not the way that was described.
Okay, so Victor, I want the invisible machine. I want the network that senses me, but I really cannot afford to wait until 2025 or beyond. Can you help me here? How can you help me?
Yeah, so let me just make a comment on both of you. I think dreaming is a necessary ingredient for success. Unless you have a vision of where you're going, you're going to just go all over the place. And so dreaming is necessary. But I also agree with your comment that you know, a lot of it has to be real. And it, you know, I'm from Microsoft, and we have actually gone through this, for lack of a better word, disruption. So we were a shrink wrap company. As you may remember, you went to the store, you bought a piece of CD, and you downloaded the software, and you were done. And we moved from there to cloud. And we didn't know at the time what a massive undertaking that was. We were you know, dependent on network providers, Cisco, Juniper, and the likes, to sort of build these massive networks. So just to give you a perspective of, I'm giving you a little longer answer, but I have to create the context here. So, you know, we have over 180,000 miles of fiber that connects various data centers. And there's millions of miles of fiber inside the data center, but I'm talking about the ones that connects. And then there's about 100 terabits per second of excess capacity available to us. Now, we have to manage this. We have to also manage the millions of servers that sit in the thing. So, and we have learned a lot over the last decade about how to do that, how to create less dependencies, how to sort of own all this stuff. And and to have it work. So my thoughts here is that, you have to take these steps, and you will get there. So, this dream that you have will happen, but how fast it happens will depend on how many steps you take or how fast you move in this direction. I'll stop at that, and I'll answer the question.
Okay, so let's unpack what you just said a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you said that you started with network vendors, Juniper and Cisco's were the name that you mentioned, and that reminds me of the challenge that I am facing on the ground today.
Yep.
And although I'm a dreamer, I want to have the ultimate best for my consumers and my enterprise customers. But then the challenge I'm facing is that I have my partners who are giving me black boxes. And as much as I know that I have the data in my network, I am sitting on mountains and mountains of data, but this data is hidden inside these black boxes. How did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, so this is very real. So I completely get what you're saying. Just to sort of create a parallel for us too. So when we built all these data centers and with all these network providers, we had similar issues. I mean, there were lots of data available, and lots of software was written to ingest the data and just put it somewhere. But we didn't actually know what to do with the data. And in some cases, the kind of data we wanted, it was not available because it was, like you said, a black box. So this was a process. I mean, it was not, I wouldn't say that in 2010 or before 2008, 2007, we knew exactly what to do here. So we faced the same things that you're facing. We faced sort of the same. But gradually, we started to decide, we realized that there was no way out, but we had to, get that data. So we did a bunch of things. So one is that because we were very big, we are able to sort of ask the vendors to do something, and they would do it because there's money involved, and they have to sort of provide. You're the customer, so that was one thing. Then we started to actually put in, we assigned developer teams to now build the analytics part of it. And so the more thought process was what is the storage solution here? How much data should we collect? How long should we keep the data? Same kind of things that you probably think about. And then we started going down that path, and then it took many, many years, but we have gotten to the point where things do run efficiently. But the operators can learn from that. They don't have to go through the exact same journey because we have faced it and are much more sort of knowledgeable about things now than we were then.
Definitely.
So
Lloyd, operators can do it. That's the message I'm hearing from Victor. NVIDIA, an AI company, you play with data every day, every month, every year. Yeah, that's your lifeblood. How can NVIDIA and the likes of NVIDIA help me crack this nut of data and using the data that I have in my systems to, first of all, do simple things, but then eventually go to a bigger, broader ambition?
NVIDIA is offering a lot of options for operators to engage in different parts of the stack. And you can do it directly or you can do it through partners. Victor is telling you, you can build your own cloud. You can learn from him how to build a cloud correctly. I'm telling you, I can help you learn how to utilize AI. With a large ecosystem that we have, with lots of partners that have trained models, that have played around with the models, that learned from their mistakes, that improved and optimized models. So you have all of these pre-trained models, you have all of these partners that have already launched products, both in academia and in companies. And of course, everybody knows the big names, right? OpenAI and those guys. But it's a wide ecosystem that you can utilize. Telcos need to step up and say, yes, we're ready to utilize it, we're ready to engage, and this is what we need, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. And then instead of that black box, you'll have a vendor saying, here's an open version of that black box. Yeah. Here's a way you can insert yourself there.
Just one correction. I actually didn't say that you can build your own cloud. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Don't do that, Victor. He raised my hope, and I was going to build on
because I think people have gone on that journey, and it's much easier said than done. Clouds are not built like this, but what I was saying is effectively that we are happy to embark on that journey with the telecom. So they don't have to do all the things that we had to do. They can actually use the things we have done and use their knowledge.
And what I meant, just to be exact, what I meant was you don't need to reinvent the wheel here.
Sure.
There is an architecture for cloud. There's an architecture for AI. So you don't need to reinvent any
No, definitely we don't need to reinvent, and we don't have any ambition to change our DNA and to start doing business like the cloud does. But the learnings can be had, and the ecosystem can be reused or leveraged. So with these two data points, Mariam, yes, it has been done, and it has been tested and tried, and we have the partners who are willing to help us, and the ecosystem is there. What level of confidence does it give you to go implement this vision, and what is the time frame? Is it still 2025, or can I stretch it a little bit, pull it back?
I never said 25, by the way.
Someone said
35.
35.
My vision is, my time horizon for the lab is 35, but the level of confidence is here not on the technical side. We hear everywhere there are pieces developed. The cloud operates in AI-based solutions. We have AI-based models. Devices are ready. Different domains in the network are also utilizing AI solutions. However, I think the actual challenge here is to look at the network holistically and change the interactions in the ecosystem. And for that, we need to develop a win-win mindset and demonstrate also where are the wins if open black boxes are opened up or data is shared both ways. Technically, I think we need to demonstrate the benefits of these engagements and think a little bit about different business interactions here that might also change the balances in the ecosystem.
Very good. Okay, so let's start to unpack these big rocks. Yeah, so data definitely is one of them. The black boxes, the brownfield is another one. So maybe I start again with you, Victor. Let's unpack the brownfield a little bit. You've had experience with, of course, the networking vendors for your own cloud, your own data centers, your own needs, but then you've also been in a journey with some telco transformation leaders. Yeah. Help me see through the lens of Azure for Cloud, working with a tier one. What were the problems or impediments that you had to solve in your journey, and where are you? Give me a pulse.
Yeah. So it's a great question. So first, let me tell you the problems we actually solved and we feel very confident of solving for the community in general. So, I mean, after all, there is a telco network. It has computers and it has network. The cloud has computers and it has network. They are equally common. In fact, I would say the cloud is way more complicated in terms of how many of these computers you have and networks you have. So, in terms of data, yes, you're right, but we already have a lot of data from running the cloud, okay? So we have these network data, so the step one for us is to, and then we have developed these models, and we actually use a lot of AI in managing these massive compute distributed systems. And so we have those models, and they work. One example of a model is NIC failure, right? Like if you want to predict that NIC is going to fail, you want to predict it fast enough so that it doesn't fail, and then you find out later on. So we've sort of done things like that. Storage failure, we've done things like that. So that is knowledge that, unlike any other companies would have this kind of knowledge because they don't run such massive systems. So we have that. Now, the second part of it, we talk about, that we don't have, which is for example, the wireless stuff that you want to do, the stuff between the near edge and DU and CU and core and things. We don't have that. So there we just have to partner one of the things that we are doing, that I'm doing in my own group, is actually deploying a campus-wide network. And because we have a very strong belief that you want to eat your own dog food, you want to make sure that you feel the pain that your customer or anybody else is feeling. So we're building this campus-wide test bed. It works on unlicensed frequency, but it actually, you can get a phone from any company, and then you can just operate it. And part of the reason for this is these AI models that need data require that, and they have to be refined. So one of the things that we have to do with the partners is effectively put this into their systems and then pick the data, either the real data or the real-time data or the data that already exists, and do more with this. This is a journey. We are embarked on it. We're taking it. I feel very confident that we can actually get there. But then the question that you will ask or will come up is that, what do you do? Like, how do these models get shared amongst all the other people that you're doing? So there you have to give it a little more thought.
So talking about, when you said something that really sparked a question in my mind, you said that the cloud is more complex or complicated than the network. Yeah. I would challenge you on that, because I feel that the telecommunications network is the most complicated beast ever. It's a distributed data center with layers and layers of complexity at each instance of that distribution. And Miriam, tell me, you've been doing AI for telco, for RAN, since your childhood, I would say. So tell me, how doing AI and machine learning for telco, how is it different from simple video analytics or LLMs for speech recognition and text-to-speech, and the simple static things versus dynamic, real-time, time series data that we have to manage to run and operate the networks? Speak to me about that.
Sure. Maybe to comment a little bit on the complexity, I would claim the data traffic amount in the data center networks is far beyond what we experience in telco networks. So it's a different type of complexity the two parts have to deal with. But generally talking about AI, ML in telco networks, I have been working on it since 4G, as you said. And when I heard first time self-organizing network, that was for me the buzzword for basically looking into intelligent solution, how else to achieve self-organization. And what we have done back then is really develop algorithms for decision-making within the network, in the PHY layer, in the MAC layer, etc., for known problems, for which we had actually in the telco space already fairly well-established solutions, partially even solutions that reached the theoretical boundaries, the theoretical limits. So was there really a need for replacing these with AI solutions? I would say not in all cases. However, if we look into how AI evolved, and it evolved rapidly since then, one of the triggers was the big data move, which is fairly solved because we don't hear about big data anymore. It's available and we know how to handle it. Then the other path was, with this together, the emergence of the deep neural networks. But the problem space was a different one for which this was developed. You brought up the natural language processing or computer vision. And if we look at those, we see cycles, repetitions, correlations between data in the language case. Or if we look into the image vision space, what we see is we are dealing with actually data in Euclidean space. We have the X, Y, Z axis. I do recall times where we started to map the network into heat maps to demonstrate its performance, and then basically apply directly convolutional neural networks, image recognition in AI ML, in order to have basically the data prepared for it. However, the network itself is much more complex than just dealing with these Euclidean space data. We need to find a solution, and I do believe generative AI and large language models are setting the right direction for us also from which we can make use to. We need to really identify the right problems in the network that can be solved by AI, that go beyond these heuristic analytic models that we have, where data-driven approaches can be the response. And they're really looking into problems for which we don't have models, that we can't model as a Markov decision process is simply one approach. The other one is, of course, looking into cross-domain problems, having a network that is not only about scheduling, not only about power control, but really ranging into different network domains and defining the problem really end-to-end is another field. And then let me be again the dreamer here. If you have generative AI and LLMs, why don't we, and we are in the phase of programmability and software-based networks with compute available, all big assumptions that they are there, but why don't we then just say, hey, network, generate yourself to the optimum possible?
Okay, so let's not get there. So because I am sitting on the ground, I have, like you said, I don't even have the models. A network that self-assembles and self-optimizes and does big things for me, yes, I would love to have, but it's too far of a bridge for me. So talking about too far of a bridge, Elad, she mentioned we don't, the fundamental assumption or the fundamental gap at this time is I have the data, which is hidden in the black boxes. I may be able to pick some models from here and there, but then talk to me on how can folks like NVIDIA and the hyperscalers can help me as a telco build my own models and run them through the entire life cycle without going through the entire life cycle of learning that you guys went through in your own domains. So speak to me about that.
So there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that this is the iPhone moment for AI. Everybody wants to touch AI, lots of companies want to play with AI, and everybody is looking for their partners to play with. And telcos could play a huge part of that and actually tell other partners, hey, I want to focus on this problem and then this problem. So each company can focus on a different problem for you. So between what Miriam said and what Victor said, Victor mentioned something we call predictive maintenance, right? If my network goes down, I want to understand what happened, reroute. That's not such a huge problem. And there are companies that focus on that. All you need to do is direct them correctly with your data, with pre-trained models and your data. So that's the good news. The bad news is it is a huge problem with lots of little pieces. So it is something that you'll need to build very correctly and very precisely with each and every partner and say, this is the problem you want to solve. This is the problem that you want to solve. And you guys already have, as a telco, you have GSIs, you have partners, you have cloud partners that can give you both help on the programming side and building it up side and capacity side. And I think what NVIDIA brings, again, is the ability to utilize LLMs for all of this. I mean, it's utilization at the end of the day. You have this platform, you need to utilize it. The good news is it's the same platform. For all of the AI that we mentioned, it's the same exact platform. We call it the AI factories. And that's regardless of a maker. It's just data in, intelligence out.
Okay. Data in, intelligence out.
Can I build on it a little bit? We are making a strong assumption AI is there. It's fine. It's AI is also evolving. It is, yes, in its peak, or it is very prominent nowadays and very successfully prominent. However, there is a lot of efforts also going on in the research community in academia on AI. New approaches are developed, new models are developed, new theories are developed. And what I think is, and there are a lot of investments done by various federal agencies in different continents of the world. However, do the telcos really tell those researchers, these are the problems, please help us with, or can you develop models for us on these problems? Is another gap maybe that needs to be added.
So let's talk about that a bit. Victor, I think we do have partnerships with academia and research institutes, and we partner with the governments on public-funded programs. But the leverage that we have on those consortiums or those initiatives, and I'm now getting into some sensitive topics here, is a little bit of a tricky situation. We want to benefit from it, but then we also don't want to be encumbered by the policy and the regulatory concerns that comes with it. Help me unpack the IP problem. And what are some of the things that have been used previously to solve other problems that we could carry forward into solving the problem of data and sharing the models at the very least, not data?
Yeah, so another great question. I think, so I would begin by saying, don't worry so much about IP. Let me just say that. Now, let me try to back this up. So one of the best defense against IP is publications. So, academics want to publish, they want to get their students, PhD students, get their degrees and publish. Now, in some cases, some of the top universities will be aggressive in trying to patent some of these ideas, and that's just life, and that's fine. But generally speaking, what you're doing is I think what Miriam was saying, and I completely agree with this, is that the state of art moves forward in the right direction. Otherwise, it'll just move forward anyways, right? It's going to move forward. They're going to create all these models and things that are not usable by you, and we will sort of not have the multiplier effect that she's talking about. The multiplier effect comes from the fact that the TIP, for example, can engage with the academics and influence the direction they are going. Now, beyond that, because you're not paying for it yourself in some sense, you are sort of like, you don't own that IP, but like I said, most of these people will publish, and that'll be enough, and that'll give you the technology that you need. And for cases, there are also sort of business models that these universities and these NSF-funded things do, which is that they will work with, if you like some group that is doing something very relevant to what you're doing, you can actually create ties with them independent of that particular consortium, and then you can just fund it, and then you have joint IP with them. Right. So it gives you an advantage because you don't have to, you can watch it and you can see which one is doing the right thing and which one is really on board, and then you go in with that. And so it just lowers the barrier to entry for you. It sort of gives you the model, you can work with them very carefully. And it's just the right thing to do. It's absolutely the right thing to do. Otherwise, you just end up in multiple threads going in different directions.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the time, and we are getting close to the end of our time. And I would like to wrap it up with one question to all three of you. So if TIP, you mentioned TIP could do something.
Yeah.
So if we were to set up a consortium, or a think tank, or a incubator, so think tank to incubator, anything between the two extremes. Give me 3 big rocks that I could, and now I'm speaking in my role of the board of directors for TIP, 3 big rocks that I could help the industry solve through a crowdsourced innovation or incubation, or even just crowdsourced research. What would be your wish list, Victor? Let's start with you this time.
Oh, me? Do you want me to give you all 3 or just give you one?
Just give me one, and then we'll go make a round.
Right. So I think, you sort of alluded to this, and the data is important. When you started this conversation, you talked about how much data you have, but or you got these black boxes, but you don't know what to do with it, or you're not doing you're not doing the right analytics on it, or you're not sort of making it useful for your system. Now, before I give you the thing, I do want to say, I think you brought up the LLM thing for a second. There is this major sort of almost a revolution, not an evolution, I would say, but a revolution that has happened in AI with these GPT models, GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, and then co-pilots like the ChatGPT and many other co-pilots that Microsoft has announced. And that gives you a very, very strong movement forward. So one really quick example of that is that you have a massive amount of documentation that is available, and then, or if something goes bad happens and you get a ticket, then they don't know how to solve it. ChatGPT can actually help open that up, independent of the data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a lot more to say there, but I'll stop here.
But that's a very good one, and I think that is very nicely fitting to an industry consortium.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is exactly the point, nice which is that. So, let me just say a few more things about that. So, GPT model in itself, in order to use it, you have to write what we are calling copilots, which is that you have to provide the context and what is called prompt engineering. You've got to sort of like go in there with the right data sets and the right query,
can go in and help
and that's work. Yes. That is actually intellectually hard work.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that is something that you're not going to worry about the model itself. Model is already done. Tens of thousands of GPUs.
I bring my domain experts, and then they help me help
that's
you.
Right. So you can So you can bring those folks into that to write these copilots that can be used.
Okay.
So
I'm looking at the clock. But thank you so much for giving me a very, very good hint there, Miriam.
So building on data and its accessibility, when you said we need three things, I would have said data, data, data. But yes, that's one thing. The other one is clearly there are lots of problems to be solved and that can be solved with AI. I would say to identify the right set of problems that can help the industry to grow further, but then also find the right set of partners that can solve these problems.
Thank you. Problem and scope, yeah? Lloyd.
I think barrier is the cost of innovation.
Cost of innovation.
Yeah, because I think connecting between what Miriam said and what Victor said, so if you want to first identify which problems you want to solve, and then you want to take the experts and help you solve those problems, they need to do it somewhere. So that's the cost of innovation. You need to be able to develop, you need to be able to have the infrastructure in place. That's the cost of innovation. And what TIP can do, I think, is to, first of all, help identify the journeys, meaning what are the problems that we're trying to solve, workloads, then identify the partners, as Miriam said, which partners can help me on which journey, and eventually bring out a template or a blueprint that says, here's how I can deploy this.
Very good. Thank you so much for such an insightful conversation, and this is just the start. We are having a breakout panel, or breakout session, I should say, tomorrow, a working level session. All of you are invited, and your people are invited to come, and please help us write the manifesto of a new initiative that we would love to create in TIP to help the industry. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was very, very insightful. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. This was just a preview from what you will see in breakout sessions on AI. So the next announcement, I don't need a cue card for that. It's lunch.